And good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. He's Griffin. Prince Charles is here on a Tuesday. Coming up in today's show, we will talk more about the impact of Jalen Hurts on Lamar Jackson. Also, we will preview Orioles Nationals. Really quick two-game set down in D.C. Our buddy Pete Medhurst, who is part of the Nationals broadcast team, is going to join us. He's also, of course, Navy play-by-play voice, and they've got a big game on Saturday night against Army. We'll preview the week that is. A huge week, obviously, with that game, and also, of course, Maryland Hopkins. Big top 10 showdown coming up on Saturday night as well. Bummer that both those games are at night. Real bummer that's how it worked out. You couldn't spread them out with two huge games on Saturday, but we'll preview that with Patrick Stevens. Jarrett Bell from USA Today will join us, talk a little bit more about Lamar and Jalen Hurts. All of that coming up on the program this morning. Let's get right into it. A Lamar-O-Meter update brought to you by Glory Days Grill. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports. By the way, did you get a winner yesterday? Yeah, we need to do that.
Today.
Let's work on that.
Let's give it 24 hours,
right? From when we posted it, which is at 10 o'clock. So that would be 24 hours.
Okay.
That's how that works. So there we go. Oops, sorry. It's there. It's there. You can find it. It's there. Yesterday we what was the actual number? Because we had some tape issues on the meter.
It was
yesterday.
81.
81. Well, that
81.
doesn't look like 81 to me.
It doesn't.
Are we going to have to do this every day?
I'll make sure I look at it today.
All right. We need to this I would say it moves to the top of the list as far as our concerns. The most important thing we have going on, obviously, is the status of the Lamar-O-Meter. So it was 81% that Tim Barbalace moved it to yesterday, and I would have never we would have had to, of course, corrected that today. The question that you guys kept asking yesterday is, what does Jalen Hurts' deal mean for the meter? And I decided, first of all, that I wasn't going to immediately move it or do an emergency move, in part because I didn't know. Unlike other things that immediately can kind of give you, statements, things that are said, it can give you a feel for where it is. I couldn't figure out what Jalen Hurts' deal meant for the meter. Honestly, I couldn't. I sat there for a couple of hours racking my brain, going back and forth with some of you guys on Twitter. And I have feelings that we'll get to about the last 24 hours of discourse. But the meter itself, what does Jalen Hurts' deal mean for the meter? As we said yesterday, after we finally dove, the first numbers that come out, you're like, oh boy, that's great for Jalen Hurts. Then you get the real numbers about what's fully guaranteed, what's essentially guaranteed, and the only number that's much different than what the Ravens offered is the annual average salary. And it's negligibly different. It's like $1 million more. The Ravens could match that in order to make it work. Essentially, Jalen Hurts got what you could call roughly the same deal. There are areas where you could say Lamar got a better offer from the Baltimore Ravens. There's, I think, less than $1 million more in injury guarantees in Jalen Hurts' deal. That's negligible. Lamar got guaranteed more, or had more fully guaranteed at signing in his deal. The reality is that ultimately, if Lamar Jackson is looking for 200 plus and fully guaranteed, that didn't help him. But what's the reality beyond that? Because I saw a lot of discourse yesterday about how this further proves that the Ravens haven't lowballed Lamar Jackson and they've treated him with respect and all of this stuff. A little bit of a Ravens rah-rah, if you will. I've said this a lot. When there aren't games to be played, we oftentimes use scenarios to create winning replacement. Well, we can't win on the field today because the team isn't playing, so what can we feel like we won? And we, as fans, this is theater of the absurd. We do this after, press conferences. Well, they won that press conference. No one has ever done that. Ever. That's never happened. There have been some really bad ones. The Ravens didn't have a great one 2 weeks ago.
They've lost press conferences.
I don't even know that. I mean, like, I don't even know that you can go as far as. And I don't believe that either. You can't lose a press conference either. You can have bad ones.
They should start keeping a score.
Thank you. We just say things because it's in our nature. We're fans. We think we can win dumb things, like when some tweet's going around about who's the best linebacker of all time. Who the F cares? Not that I think there's a debate. I, of course, would agree with you that I think Ray Lewis is the best true inside linebacker of all time. Now, how he compares against, say, Lawrence Taylor, conversation for a different day, my dudes. Who cares? But this is who we are. In our nature, everything is a win or a loss. Everything. We can't just accept things as being factually accurate. Like when I said before Odell Beckham that the team was worse than they were a year ago. They had lost Calais Campbell. Instead of saying, you're right, it's but they've got a bunch of defensive linemen. We can't even accept fact because we have to win. Everything has to be a win. No one said, I think they're going to be a disaster along the defensive line. I think it's going to be the worst defensive line of all time. I said they're factually worse than they were at the end of the season last year, which is just fact. That's it. They don't have as many good players as they had a year ago. They might be okay. Maybe. Nobody knows. You don't know. I don't know. I understand. I think they've got some depth along the defensive line. I think if there was an area where they could afford to lose something, that was probably the case. But factually speaking, they lost a significant part and didn't replace it with anything. It's an area where, on paper, they're worse. They also lost their, vocal leader defensively. You can hope that Roquan Smith will prove to be that guy. We don't know that yet. But we're not capable of just having these conversations because everything has to be viewed within the prism of winning and losing. And so when Jalen Hurts' contract offer becomes public, we suddenly create into, well, this is a win for the Ravens, or this is a. I want to try to have this conversation in as adult a way as possible. Nothing that happened yesterday leaves the Baltimore Ravens any closer to having finality with Lamar Jackson. I get it. You want to feel better. This is very much a guarantee fairy situation. This is very much a I can stick my head up a butcher's ass type of situation, but it's got to be your bull. Of course, neither one of you get that reference. Watch Tommy Boy. It's the greatest motion picture of all time.
Oh, right. I did watch Tommy Boy.
Yeah, well, It's one of the most important scenes in Tommy Boy.
Yeah, great scene.
Yes, it is. I'm aware, Griffin. God. I like T-Bones, too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be sticking my head up a bull's ass. The point being, trying to make yourself feel better by saying, well, this is proof the Ravens offered Lamar Jackson something. Great. Now tell me how it's going to lead to Lamar Jackson doing a deal. Tell me how it is that you sitting back and saying, Ravens good, Lamar bad. Ravens right, Lamar wrong. Tell me how that's going to solve this. We live in a society where we want to do things like blame, where we want to be defensive, where we want to do those things, instead of being in a society where we try to get to solutions. I deal with this all the time in management, constantly. I don't need defensiveness. I need solutions. Solutions. Tell me what happened in the last 24 hours that's got us closer to a solution when it comes to Lamar Jackson. Tell me. Anybody. I'll wait.
Yeah, nothing.
I can do the CM Punk thing. I'll sit down in the middle of the ring, and I'll just wait. You tell me.
Crisscross applesauce?
Yeah, I'll do that. 100%. Crisscross applesauce in the middle of the ring. We don't say the other thing that I said when I was a kid. No longer call it that. It's crisscross. Nobody my age knew what crisscross applesauce was. Wasn't until I had kids that I was like, oh, right, because we don't call it the other thing. Got it. Got it. I think it's the right thing to do, by the way. I'm not being, this isn't a cancel culture thing.
It doesn't, it leads me to, like, constantly think, what if Lamar, say, came back from his injury and played even against the Bengals? Because I think let the Eagles do this is, yes, the Super Bowl, but also the fact that Jalen Hurts came back from injury.
I have no idea. But the Ravens have offered more than the Eagles offered Jalen Hurts. There's no disconnect. We're having the wrong conversations, is what I'm saying. We're debating about things that aren't debatable. There's a problem here. The Ravens believe, for good reason, they have offered an extraordinarily fair market contract to Lamar Jackson. Ravens fans have the right to believe that. You can believe that Lamar Jackson should take that offer. You can be reasonably critical about Lamar Jackson having played the last 2 seasons for less money than he should have played for, because 2 years ago he should have done a deal and gone back and tried to re-up that deal and kept leverage. You can be fairly critical. Now, you can't force him to do anything. That's his right. And that's where the problem comes in. That saying all of these things actually helps nothing in any way. You can keep saying, well, this is further proof, and Lamar just needs to do this. Great. Now, do you think he's going to do it today? Do you think today Lamar Jackson's going to say, well, geez, if that's what Jalen Hurts got, I'm just going to have to go stick my tail between my legs and go back and take the deal the Ravens offered to begin with?
No, and I guess that's as much because we want it to mean something, even if it's maybe even bad news. I guess for if there were a loser per se, even we just want news. I feel like
I think it's less that we want news. I think we want to feel like we're winning. That's winning replacement. This is something that I first recognized when the Orioles were dreadful, and anything that they could do, anything an Orioles fan could do to feel something positive, they would do. They would literally try. Felix P.A. would try to make you feel good at night. We want to feel like we have a warm blanket around us.
First cycle, didn't he?
Yes, he did. That's a fact.
That's pretty good.
He was dreadful. He was an abomination. He was awful. Man, I don't know what else there is to say. He was horrendous. But man, I would get into some fights with some people about he has all the tools. He's a 5-tool player. Yes, well, why isn't he good?
What was the most bases he stole in a year?
I don't know.
He didn't steal that many.
Well, he didn't ever get on base enough to have stolen all that many bases. He was a 5-tool player that didn't use any of the tools in playing baseball. It's a different conversation for a different day.
21 stolen bases in his career.
I mean, in his career.
In his career.
Yes.
Oh,
my. The number of people that wanted to scream at me about how he was a 5-tool player and the Orioles have found a gem in Felix P.A.
His rookie year, he stole 8 bases for the Cubs.
He scored. So we're spending way too much time on Felix P.A. We're doing the Lamar-O-Meter right now. Say it till you're blue in the face. Continue to talk about it. Continue to try to make yourself feel better by feeling like the Ravens have done right. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't get you closer. And you would say, so what? Are you saying you just gotta overpay Lamar to overpay him? I don't know. It's possible. If Lamar Jackson is completely unwilling to budge from this, if he continues to say, I don't care what other quarterbacks get, I'm playing for this, period, or I'm not doing a deal, it doesn't help you. You could say you don't think he's negotiating fairly. Fine. Fine. It'd be like someone coming to me and saying, I want you to work this job for this amount of money, and me saying, yeah, I don't really feel like doing that. I'd rather spend Sunday night with my kids. And them saying, well, yeah, but you're not going to get a better offer. I'm like, I don't think you understand. I don't care. This is the reality that faces the Ravens. What faces the Ravens is, if they don't get a deal done, they can do this for 2 more years, and then they run the risk of losing their quarterback and having nothing to show for it. And at some point, that might be the best option. Or is it a better option to simply overpay and not deal with that? We keep trying to make ourselves feel better, but we can't change reality within those circumstances. I can't make it so that Jalen Hurts not getting fully guaranteed money means Lamar Jackson waltzes back to the Baltimore Ravens and says, all right, that was the one I was waiting for. I tried. You go ahead and tell me what it is that you want to offer me. And nothing that we have seen throughout this process suggests that's going to be the case. Could it be? I guess. Anything could happen. Anything. We can sit here until we're blue in the face debating about Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and who's better and all. We can do that and waste our breath, and I'm sure we'll spend more time doing that. But it doesn't change anything. It's just us trying to feel better about ourselves, or I don't know, prove that we're right, or some other nonsense. It changes nothing about the actual reality of the circumstance, which is that we have seen no inclination that Lamar Jackson is willing to just accept that that's what market value is for him and take what market value is for him. He believes his market value should be Deshaun Watson. So I don't know. Where do I move the number to? The reality is I'm going back to 86, I think.
86. So you are dropping it for where you were Friday.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm in a weird place. I don't know, because hang on a second. Lombardi, I forgot about Lombardi. I didn't get to react to the Lombardi thing. I forgot about that. I never actually set a number related to the Lombardi.
You took your hand off of it, though. Isn't that the rule? Like,
No,
once you
it's
release
not.
your hand from the arrow.
No, that's not it at all. 90. Back to 90.
Okay.
But you got to explain this. Like, I don't really think the Jalen Hurts contract has any impact on what Lamar is going to do. Like, other contracts have been done, and Lamar still hasn't moved. So I don't think that suddenly this one is going to be the one that makes Lamar Jackson say, that's it. I now know. There's nothing else to see here. This is what it is that I can get, and nothing more than that. Can I hope that at some point that's what he says? You guys can keep talking about, well, if he only had an agent. Lamar Jackson got a better offer than Jalen Hurts without an agent. We have to. I think Lamar Jackson should have an agent. I agree. But as I said a million times before, if Lamar Jackson tells that agent, this is what I'm willing to do and this is what I'm not willing to do, then nothing changes. And the offer that he got has more fully guaranteed money than the offer that Jalen Hurts got. And he said no. So we can keep trying to make this be about an agent. And I'm not telling you that I think Lamar Jackson should have one. But the problem isn't the agent. The problem is Lamar Jackson has made a decision that he wants something and he's not budging off of it. And until he does, I don't know that it matters. Because the leverage he continues to have is no one can force him to do a deal. That's his leverage. And we want to ignore that, and we want to pretend like it'd be stupid. No one can force him to do a deal. He can continue to say, clearly the Ravens care about his opinion. He definitely has some amount of power over them because he apparently was the one that said, get me DeAndre Hopkins or Odell Beckham, and empowered the Ravens to drastically overpay Odell Beckham. You want to feel better about yourself? Go ahead, shove your head up your butcher's ass. I don't know. But I don't know how any of this is going to help the conversation. The question is, what's going to get Lamar to come to the table? 90%. That's my decision. 90%. And it's not about Jalen Hurts. It's way more about the fact that I didn't get to react to Mike Lombardi's report from last week. Lamar-O-Meter update is brought to you by Glory Days Grill. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports. We're going to talk some more about Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts as we continue along here on a Tuesday edition of the program. Our next guest, of course, longtime friend of ours, NFL writer for USA Today. He's got a column up today about Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. He is Mr. Jarrett Bell, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Jarrett, it's Glenn. It's always great to catch up. Thank you for taking a minute for me this morning.
Hey, Glenn. It seems like the last time we talked, it was about Lamar Jackson and his contract.
And I'm pretty sure at the end of that, I said I look forward to talking to you about it 100 more times before it's done.
No, let's not. Hey, next time it'll be a done deal, and Lamar will be happy, and Baltimore will be having a parade. Anyway,
here's my problem, Jarrett. Like, I understand people saying, "Hey, look, this is proof. The Ravens have offered Lamar Jackson a fair contract." You know, I understand all of these things. The problem is, I still don't understand. If Lamar Jackson didn't care the last time about what the fair market was for him, I don't know why he's going to suddenly care this time about what the market appears to show his value to be. I think he has just sort of decided he's dug in, and I don't know what's changing that now.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the frustrating things for people on the outside who are trying to stay on top of it. For one, the fans who love Lamar and love their football team, they are obviously frustrated. The team, because they want their quarterback, and I'm sure there's some frustration from Lamar's side and camp too, in terms of getting to the point where they're comfortable. The thing that really just trips me out, Glenn, is the fact that we go back to the years and where was it and what the numbers were and what the offers were, all that, and then you kick the can down the road 6 months later, a year later, pick your point, your marker, right? And the conditions change. The quarterback market changes. The guarantees for this guy changes. The one thing that hadn't changed is Deshaun Watson's contract being out there as an outlier. But I think that's the thing that's really a moving frustration, because you think that the deal is fair, and so if that ESPN report about what they offered last fall is accurate, and I'll say, okay, that's what they were told, and if that was the case, then yeah, you say, wow, he had that he rejected. But how does that change now? It's not going to be the same offer. It just never is 6 months down the line. And then what if Joe Burrow gets a new contract next week? How does that change everything? So I don't know if I've enlightened you at all. Probably not. But I've added to the conversation.
Jarrett, let me ask this question, because I think the last time you and I talked, we talked about the role of the Players Association and what Lamar might feel like he's doing as a fighter right now. I wonder if there's a point where the Players Association has to kind of like publicly say, we release you, right? Like we don't want you to feel an obligation to do this any longer. We appreciate the fight that you've attempted to show. Your colleagues are not willing to show the same amount of fight, and we think that you're running the risk of hurting yourself and losing money in the process, and we don't want you to do that anymore. And I know that's a difficult thing to do because it feels like you're fighting the right fight, but at some point does someone need to get in Lamar's ear and say, we can't run the risk of you going through this process, maybe suffering an injury and losing out on a lot of money in the process of trying to do this on our behalf.
Yeah, that would be nice. I don't see that happening, because look at it, Glenn. They've not come out and said anything publicly like that would declare that they are endorsing the way he's going about it. They've not done that. So maybe they've done it in terms of speaking on background or behind closed doors, but definitely nothing publicly, And so for them to come out now and say something publicly, that just would not be consistent with how they're, trying to do it. And hey, there are examples out there. There's few, and there's one I can think of. What's his name? Kirk Cousins, right? And you can say, well, here's what happened with, a guy who got, all guaranteed money and held out or negotiated for that. But yeah, it's just, I think one of the things that, the NFLPA going way back before DeMorris, just thinking back before DeMorris Smith, thinking back to, what Gene Upshaw used to always say about it, and that the money that you get guaranteed at signing, I mean, that's your real guarantee, your signing bonus.
Right.
The other injury guarantees. And so we still have to look at these contracts like that because we're just not at the point, and NFL is not at the point where you're able to look at those contracts and say that they compare to baseball and the NBA. That's no newsflash here. So in lieu of that, where does a guy find his piece if he's a player who's risking himself? It's got to be in those other guarantees and those injury risk guarantees, which, from everything that's been reported, part of that is definitely, a major component of the offers that Lamar has had, but obviously not to the point where he's ready to accept it.
Just another minute here with Jarrett Bell from USA Today talking about the impact of the Jalen Hurts deal on Lamar Jackson. Jarrett, I guess my question would be, is there a way for Lamar to save face here? If he starts to read the tea leaves and say, look, I've tried, it's not coming, I should try to save face in this process. Like, is there a way for him to do it and not make it look like he lost? Is it important for the Ravens to try to structure a deal that makes him feel like he somehow still won in the process, even if he didn't get exactly what he wanted?
Yeah, you want it to be win-win. You always want these kind of negotiations, especially, to be win-win. But I think, the point that you allude to when you start talking about ego and, the optics of it, I think that's important here moving forward. It really is. So first they got to get a deal done, but,
right.
How you get the deal done and how it's portrayed, I think is really, really important. And so, from Lamar's standpoint, do you, take a deal that maybe you really, really didn't want? It's not as good as you wanted. Maybe it's 90% of what you wanted. I mean, look on the flip side, man. The money that's been left there on the table already now for the past 2 years since, say, like Josh Allen got his deal, I don't know if he's ever going to get that back. And, if you get a contract that blows out, if you get the Deshaun Watson's contract, and it's all guaranteed, fine. That's great. But let's just talk about the dollars. Would that make up for the tens of millions that you didn't get over the past couple of years because you've been digging in on this point? I've not done the math on that, but I don't think the math would support that.
Oh, no, he's lost money. There's no question. Like, he has lost money.
Yeah.
He has not played for what his market value would be, even in a normal world over the course of this process. Before I let you go, Jared, do you think that do you think that now another year of quarterback deals, like at some point there will be a moment, a come to Jesus moment where he sits down and says, it's not worth it any longer. Like, I have to, or do you think that he is just so dug in that it kind of doesn't matter what other deals get done and he's going to ride this thing out as long as he possibly can?
Yeah. It's hard for me to give an educated answer on that because, you would think that it would, but I would also have thought that you would have had an agent, a couple years ago hammering out a deal and would not have to be in the middle of it. So, from the standpoint of what I think and what's logical, it's, it really doesn't matter because he's proven to kind of do it his way and be comfortable enough in himself to want to do it his way. But, as I mentioned in the column today, boy, it would have been great to have, Nicole Lynn hit him up on DM with a DM on Instagram and go to work on his behalf. I think that's the thing that it just keeps coming back to me. And I know, I can appreciate the guys who try to negotiate their own deals and feel that they can do it. But, when you're paying an agent like 3% and you can save yourself a whole lot of aggravation and could, actually maybe stand to make more by using one. So that part of it, I just still don't understand. And I just think that there's something to be said to the fact that, you could stay out of the negotiations yourself directly and let the agent do their job and make their 3%. So
I hear you. I know I need to let you go. Is there a 30-second way for you to answer this question? Is there any chance that new ownership group in Washington rocks the apple cart here and says, we want to make a splash, We want to get this fan base back on board with everything. We want to be the ones, and if we've got to pay an absurd price in order to do that, hell, we're already paying an absurd price for a franchise with no fan base at the moment. Is there any chance that could sort of be a crazy part of this process?
Yes, that's a great question. It really is. I would just be speculating, and I would be liking it as as someone covering the NFL, always looking for something fresh to write about. So it will be appealing from that standpoint. But yeah, I think there's definitely an X factor to consider in terms of what the Commanders' new owner and his leaders will do, because they've got to win in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
The product on the field, the fans, the stadium, getting the community support. They've got a lot of different ways, and that's why I think Magic Johnson is a limited partner in this deal, but I think he's gonna he has the potential to do a lot in terms of them, bridging the gap with the community. But then you talk about what you just mentioned. That's the on the field thing. If you're gonna go and spend all this money for this franchise, why not see if you can, juice it up in other ways?
It would be
quickly as possible.
You would get a fan base really fired up really quickly. There's no doubt about that.
Yes, indeed.
At Jarrett Bell on Twitter, of course, usatoday.com, where you see his stuff. Jarrett, I know I kept you long. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for doing this.
All right. Okay, Glenn, you take care, man.
It's Jarrett Bell, longtime NFL writer, checking in with us here on GCR. Appreciate him doing that. Again, I get it. I get, in his column he says it'd be nice if Nicole Lynn had hit Lamar Jackson up the way that she did Jalen Hurts a while back. Sure, fine. I get it. But Lamar got the same offer without an agent. In some areas, a better offer without an agent. What we're saying it the wrong way. Does he need an agent? Not necessarily. Could he use maybe some better advice in general? Yeah. Like that, I think, is a fair thing to say. John from Little Rock pointed out to me that Drew thinks that this is the end of the line, that now the deal gets done in the next 30 days. I hope he's right, but I just don't know what that's... I feel like we're basing our opinions off of more commonplace considerations. I feel like we're basing our opinions off of more traditional negotiations. I don't know. Could it get done? I guess. What makes you believe that this is the moment where Lamar Jackson changes everything? We keep trying to make it seem like the Ravens have all the leverage. They've already admitted they don't, because they drastically overpaid for a wide receiver to pacify Lamar Jackson. They know. They know. There's still leverage on the other side. It's not traditional leverage. It's leverage that I don't think Lamar Jackson wants to use. But it exists. And whether or not it actually helps him, it sure as F hurts the Ravens. A scenario where they never get a deal done with Lamar Jackson hurts them. Whether it be because he decides to hold out, whether it be because he decides not to play, whether it simply is that they have a franchise quarterback that walks away in exchange for a third-round compensatory pick. All of it potentially hurts the Ravens. And to continue to ignore that because you don't like it, I get it. It's not fun, but it's real. Who's at greater danger? My God, man, I don't have the answer to that question. And it doesn't mean that the Ravens have done anything wrong. It's not a blame game. It's a what's the next move? And nothing that I've seen from Lamar Jackson makes me think it's, just accept defeat.
and has he lost money though? I mean, we say he
yes,
is
he's
losing
definitely
money.
played
Until
already.
he signs a deal though.
Stop. The last 2 seasons, he's played for less money than he needed to play for.
Right, I understand
He has
that.
lost money in the process.
But all it takes is this new ownership in Washington. All it takes is Irsay to just be like,
yeah,
you know,
if someone's
screw it.
willing to
And
do
then
that,
he
yes,
makes all
but
that money back.
I know he doesn't make all that money back. He can't. He's not going to get so much more than market value this season. We keep conflating contract value versus guaranteed money. What he's going to get paid in a contract is no different whether it's fully guaranteed or not. It's the same amount of money. He can't make that back up. He's already lost that money. And if he plays on the normal tag this year, he's obviously going to lose a lot more.
Right.
I still don't believe that's going to occur. I don't think that will happen. But it'll only add to it. He has lost significant money that he can't get back.
I guess I'm just trying to maybe point out maybe he doesn't believe that he's lost money yet.
Well, or he might not care. I think that's the different part. He might not care that he's lost less, that he has made less money playing the position the last 2 years than he could have made if he had done a deal a couple of years ago. And again, I've always talked about, I don't understand why the quarterbacks don't just all acknowledge they have all the leverage and just demand new contracts every year. I'll never understand that. And no one can ever give me a direct answer. They just sort of give me, even agents that you talk to are like, well, I don't know. That's just not the way it's worked. Why not? If you're the quarterback and you're a franchise quarterback, why don't you say every year, whatever the price is for a quarterback, you've got to bump me up to that number? If you're Josh Allen, why didn't you immediately walk in and do that? Well, because, you want to work together. You want to be good partners. Why? If you get hurt, I promise you, they're not going to be your good partner. They're going to do everything they can to get their money back. Why are you worried about being a good partner? Well, because that's money that could be spread around the salary cap. In theory, that sounds good. If you believe that's the way it's going to work, that sounds like a reason to do it. If you feel like you've got enough and that by not taking more, that money can be spent in better ways, if you believe that, if you believe in your front office, that's a good point. Does it actually happen? I'd be interested in knowing the opinion of a lot of guys over the years. Ask Aaron Rodgers if he feels like that money was spent wisely by the Packers. Just, for what it's worth. That's all I'm saying. All right, we got to get to a break. When we come back in, Patrick Stevens will join us. Huge week in college lacrosse to talk about that. Maryland has rounded out its coaching staff. They have made a move today to elevate my buddy Greg Manning Jr. to an assistant coach role. He's kind of had a bunch of different roles with Maryland over the years. We'll talk to Patrick about that when we come back in. Today's show brought to you by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Baseball season. For the first time ever, you can bet on your phone here in the state of Maryland on baseball games. So take advantage of great sign-up offers and incentives. Right now, you can go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers, click on the DraftKings link, and get up to a $1,000 deposit bonus match plus a $50 free bet. But the only way to take advantage of it is by going to PressBoxOnline.com/offers. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Are you a diehard O's fan looking for the perfect way to show your team spirit? Look no further than Birdland Sports. Birdland Sports is a small business run by fans for fans. They offer a wide variety of unofficial O's merchandise, from the Birds Are Coming tees to player cartoon shirts and more. And the best part? Their prices are more affordable than the big guys. So head to birdlandsports.com and grab your gear today. Show your support for the Birds with Birdland Sports.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Orioles phenom Gunnar Henderson, breaking down how he was able to become the top prospect in baseball at such a young age and what could be next in his first full MLB season. Also inside, we meet lacrosse players from the men's and women's college programs across the state, and Bo Smoka breaks down another year of wide receiver issues for the Ravens. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip, that first bite, Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Hartford Community College in Bel Air, Maryland, along with the National Junior College Athletic Association's Region 20, will host the 2023 NJCAA Men's Lacrosse National Championship May 13th and 14th at Hartford Sports Complex, 401 Thomas Run Road in Bel Air. Semifinals are on Saturday, May 13th. The National Championship is Sunday, May 14th. Catch the action for $10 each day. Tickets will be available in advance or at the gate on game day. Qualifying teams will be announced.
What air conditioning company can save 50% of your energy cost and qualify you for up to $7,500 in rebates? A.J. Michaels. We do more, we do it better for less. In Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
If you miss anything on the show, don't forget that you can watch full episodes at youtube.com/pressbox online, and you can download podcasts on Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Grindr. Wait, did I say Grindr? I don't think that you would find it on Grindr. Not that I know it's on Grindr or anything, I swear. On second thought, you know what? I don't care what you think. Here's Glenn.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. It is a Tuesday edition of GCR. On Tuesdays, we dive into the world of college sports with our friend, Mr. Patrick Stevens, at Discourse, D1S Course. Of course, Washington Post, USA Lacrosse Magazine, and he is back with us now here on GCR. Patrick, good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm well, Glenn. How are you doing today?
All right. It feels like Greg Manning Jr. Has probably had every role possible in his tenure with Maryland basketball. He gets elevated back to an assistant coach's role today, replacing Grant Billmeyer. What is it that people should know about what Greg Manning Jr. has brought to this Maryland program over the years?
Well, he obviously has some connection to the past. Obviously, his dad was a great player for Lefty Drizel back in the day. But this is a guy that is, between his time at Loyola, Siena, now at Maryland, just a really organized young coach. And, I bet I could tell you with a straight face that he actually took over as the head coach in a game when like three guys got ejected. I'd be lying, but you could probably in the Danny Manning era there, I could probably convince you of that, right? Because those games just kind of flew by and nobody really paid that much attention.
That's a fair point, man. It's probably true. And look, someone who obviously cares a lot about the program and has done everything, and I think deserves every opportunity. I like Greg Manning a lot, so I'm happy for him. And it's interesting because I don't think of Greg as like a huge recruiter or something like that, but I do know that a lot of guys will talk about the relationship they've had with Greg over the years. Like, he has had an influence despite maybe not ever being like the lead recruiter for this program.
Yeah, and he's been around for a while too,
yes.
Right? Like you said, they've been in a bunch of different roles, and when you size it up, I think in a lot of ways he has to feel pretty good too, just about the situation of sitting there and seeing two guys on the staff last year going and getting head coaching jobs.
That's a great point.
I think for him it's a wonderful opportunity to build his resume, because not hard to imagine him running a program of his own sometime down the road.
All right. Now, the big stories this week, of course, are in college lacrosse, as we end up, unfortunately, they're both at the same time on Saturday night, but two huge games. Let me begin with Army-Navy for this week and the realities that are ahead for Navy as this turnaround has continued. They have continued rolling. What is their reality based on what happens on Saturday night?
Well, they're already locked into a spot in the conference tournament, so that's a good thing for them. I think the one thing that it becomes a little hard, they're certainly not going to get home field advantage throughout the conference tournament. That appears to be out of reach at this point. I guess it's not technically, but in all likelihood, it would be a long shot for them to be able to do that. So I think for them, what they want to do is try to do as best they can to maybe get a second place finish, get a bye into the semifinals of the Patriot League tournament. Otherwise, what a win basically does is it ensures that they'll be playing a quarterfinal home game the first Tuesday in May, which could very well come against Loyola in a rematch of that game from last Friday, so or a couple Fridays ago. So I think if you're Navy, what you're doing at the very least is you've got your rivalry game, which takes precedence over everything. But big picture, you're in a spot where there's a chance for you to kind of work your way into a situation where you're going to be the team that's, maybe second place in the league, which, you play one less game, you've got a much better chance of being able to win that conference tournament. And a win basically locks you in to, at minimum, having a home game. So at least you don't have to travel anywhere for that first day of the tournament.
And they, of course, are not in a place where they can't get in unless they get the automatic qualifier.
No. That's not going to happen. It is Patriot League tournament or bust for Navy. And so the fewer games that they have to play in that tournament, the better off it is for them.
I assume at this point now, after what happened on Saturday, we finally got to the same point with Loyola, right?
I think so. And I think that if there is really any sort of hope at all for the Greyhounds to salvage any kind of at-large possibility, they would have to win out until, for example, a conference tournament title game or something like that. And that includes tonight against Georgetown. I think whatever little faint hope there is of an at-large for Loyola, if they lose to the Hoyas, that pretty much does it for good.
That's the sense that I got. Again, that game tonight at 7 o'clock over at Ridley Athletic Complex. Of course, the other one being Hopkins, Maryland. And, for as weird a season maybe as Maryland has had this year, this shapes up to be a pretty classic Hopkins, Maryland type of game on Saturday night, right?
Yeah, well, think about this. I mean, this is only about a year or so removed from Maryland going in and hanging a 15-goal victory over Hopkins at Homewood on Senior Day, all that stuff. And right now, granted, Maryland just probably put together its best game, at least since the Virginia, when they won down there. And maybe even, I think you could make a case it's one of their best games of the season, what they did to Rutgers. Really just kind of played the way I thought they were going to play this year, right? Where the defense was really firmly in control and the offense did its part early, and then they just kind of coasted in, basically. Not to suggest that they weren't trying hard or anything, but essentially they had the game in hand by early in the third quarter. And so this is a Maryland team that obviously has had great success against Hopkins of late. Hopkins is a team that's coming off one of its best games of the year, having hammered Ohio State. Both teams are 3-1. The winner gets at least a share of the Big Ten regular season title. Maryland would get the number 1 seed if it wins. Hopkins gets the 1 if it wins, and Penn State loses to Rutgers on Friday. So a lot at stake, plus that big old crab trophy as well. And this has the feel of a much more significant Maryland-Hopkins game than what we've seen over the last few years. Although remember, go back 2 years ago to the pandemic season, and Maryland had drubbed the Blue Jays pretty good in College Park, and it took a wild comeback to be able to win that game. You go back to the conference tournament last year, it's a couple weeks after Maryland handled Hopkins with ease, and, they just they weren't in any danger, but they kind of slogged their way through. So interesting and weird things have a way of happening in this series. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure that there really is anything that would qualify as weird. I think it's actually two pretty evenly matched teams, and it feels good going into this game, kind of looking at that as you don't have really a great sense as to what's going to happen, because that really hasn't been the case for the last few years.
Patrick Stevens is with us here on GCR. I think the point that you just made is exactly what I was feeling, which is yes, to the point, it's Hopkins, Maryland, and so it's always going to be Hopkins, Maryland, but you and I certainly know over the years from when there is an electricity, when both teams are good, when it feels like it matters, I don't know, there's something about that event that seems to mean a little bit more than when, the Hopkins has been down the last couple of years and it's harder to sell it.
Yeah, and I will say this, that just simply based on the size of the venue, you get that vibe a little bit more when the game's at Homewood than in College Park.
No doubt.
I mean, just the reality of it, let's say you're going to draw 7,000 in a 10,000-seat facility, you've got kind of a festival atmosphere. You do that in College Park, and, the place is, about
mostly
15-20% full. So there's a little bit of that. That said, you still got the parking lots, you still got the trash talk, you got the bragging rights, all that sort of thing. And I think after the last few years when Hopkins had decidedly been down with them, I'm not going to sit there and anoint them as a Final Four team and declare that they're back, but they're certainly back to being relevant again. I think that certainly has a little bit more of a pep to the game this year than it has for the last few seasons.
And to your point, there is obviously the opportunity that teams could play again at Homewood Field before the season is over in the Big Ten tournament.
Yes. Yes. It would not be a surprise if they were playing again in 2 Saturdays.
Is Hopkins safely in? Like, is there any? Can they screw it up at this point, or are they definitely in?
No. They're pretty much out of games to lose at this point.
Okay.
Like, losing to Maryland isn't going to hurt any. And you look at the schedule that they put together, and it wasn't necessarily full of brand names, but so many of those teams turned out to be really good. Like Jacksonville's 11-2, they beat them. St. Joe's is, I think, 8-4, and they lead the A-10. Utah's 8-4, and they lead the Atlantic Sun. Delaware's 9-3, and they lead the CAA. And so they just strung together all these games. Plus, even when you look at the teams that they lost to Carolina, who's in the at-large mix. They lost to Loyola, which obviously faded a little bit later on in the year. They lost to Penn State, which is another team that's in really solid shape to make the tournament at this point. I think the Nittany Lions are another bunch that are basically out of games to lose that could knock them out of the field. And they lost to Virginia, which is a loss that doesn't really hurt anyone. So, I think Hopkins is safely in the field, and honestly, I think if they win one more game somewhere, it's going to be hard to imagine them not playing at home in the first round of the tournament, whether that's beating Maryland on Saturday or at least winning a first-round Big Ten tournament game, against an Ohio State or a Rutgers or a Michigan, just to sort of take care of business against those teams again. I think that based on the computer numbers, it's really hard to imagine Hopkins getting knocked out of that top 8.
Before I ask you about the national picture, I guess the other local team that we need to discuss is Mount St. Mary's, right?
Yes, Mount St. Mary's is on a roll here. They've won 7 in a row. They now lead the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference by a game. I know when we talked to Tom Gravanti back in late January or early February or whenever we did our preview show, there was the sense was, well, hey, can they get into the top 4 in the Metro Atlantic? And now they're on the verge of clinching hosting rights for the conference tournament. If they can beat Siena on Saturday, the MAC tournament will be up in Emmitsburg. That could create a very fun little doubleheader that first Saturday in May. That game up in Emmitsburg at 11 a.m. and then the Big Ten final in Baltimore at 5:30. And so Mount St. Mary's winners of 7 in a row, in really good shape. They're not necessarily throttling people left and right, but they're playing really good lacrosse. And the Mountaineers very much in the mix, not only to host that conference tournament, but possibly get back to the NCAA tournament for the first time in a while.
And then, as we are getting to the point where we're winding down the regular season, which is kind of crazy to think since basketball just ended a couple of days ago. What are the other big storylines as we head towards postseason play?
Well, I think first off, talk about the Duke, Notre Dame, Virginia trio atop the ACC and how they've taken turns beating each other here over the last few weeks. Notre Dame got the weekend off. They get Carolina twice more, but they also have another trip to Virginia who they lost to. Duke has swept Virginia, and Notre Dame beat Duke. So I think those are the 3 teams that have kind of separated themselves, and barring something really unexpected, those are going to be, in some order, the top 3 seeds in the NCAA tournament. We mentioned Penn State in passing there a minute ago, but I think they're really one of the more fascinating teams this season. They had been really, really down the last couple of years. Some of it was because of injury. Some of it was because, Grant Ament was no longer around. Right. And you're starting to wonder just when were they going to get themselves back to anything close to where they were in 2019 when they were the number 1 seed in the tournament and made the Final Four for the first time. Well, this is the year that's happened with those 3 Ivy League wins early in the year. And speaking of that, the Ivy League last year was the real darling. You had 6 teams make the NCAA tournament. This year, that number is going to be probably somewhere between 1 and 3. I think Cornell is in very good shape to get in that large bid. And Penn and Yale have been hovering around 500. Princeton's at 500 too, but Penn and Yale in particular have good RPI and strength of schedule numbers. But there's still a few weeks to go, and it'll be interesting to see exactly how that league shakes out here over the next couple weeks. Like I say, there's a number of dangerous teams, and particularly dangerous offensive teams in that league. Princeton and Yale very much come to mind there. But, they're still, you're looking at it, and Princeton at 5-5, Yale at 6-4, Penn at 5-5. This is not quite the magic of last year when the Ivy teams were all fired up after having not gotten to play the year before.
I don't think Duke's going to get left out this year because of
Duke and Notre Dame are not going to be sweating bullets on Selection Sunday.
Far different scenario, no doubt about it. All right, it's time to play our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB teams that this particular player has played for? I begin with someone who was only an All-Star once but was a World Series MVP and in the same year the NLCS MVP. It was a heck of a postseason back in 2011. 4 teams for David Freese.
David Freese. St. Louis for sure,
That's
right?
obviously where he was. All of those accomplishments occurred.
And Pittsburgh. He was in Pittsburgh.
Most certainly
sure,
was
right?
in Pittsburgh, yes.
And now we have 2 leftover spots for David Freese.
One I remember significantly. The other I didn't remember.
Okay. Am I? Well, let's first of all let's do what I always do and say the Dodgers.
That's the one I didn't remember. He was most certainly a Dodger at the end of his career for 2 seasons. So you're missing.
And then I'll throw Arizona out.
Oh man, I actually remember this well. He went from St. Louis to
the Angels.
The Angels, yes, correct. He spent 2 years with the Angels in 14 and 15 before he went to the Pirates. And then one more, a 2-time All-Star, a man who hit a pretty emotional home run once upon a time. He led the league in triples once. He led the league in stolen bases 3 times, a former Gold Glove and Silver Slugger winner. 4 teams for D. Gordon.
D. Gordon. D. Gordon was definitely in Miami, right?
Most certainly. That's where he famously hit the home run, yep.
And then Seattle, correct?
After Miami, he was in Seattle. So I also struggled with the one. I thought you would get the one at the end. Last year, he spent somewhere last year, and he actually started his career 4 years somewhere else.
Well, he was in Washington last year.
That's
correct?
where he was last year, correct.
And he was a Dodger, right?
There you go. It's always a safe bet. Always a safe bet, 4 for 4 on D. Gordon. I know you're at Loyola tonight. What's the rest of the week look like for you?
We'll be at Hopkins, Maryland on Sunday or Saturday. Not Sunday. If I get there, then it's not going to be good. But I'll be at Hopkins, Maryland on Saturday. It was a tough call.
Yep.
Which is I really wish that Army Navy game was in its afternoon slot like it normally is. But we know how TV works, and they're going to do what TV's going to do, and so it sort of knocks out the possibility of a neat doubleheader this weekend. So heading to College Park to see who ultimately gets a share of the Big Ten title.
Yeah, it's a bummer that they couldn't have. But yeah, you're right. That's the way it works. TV dictates everything. At Discourse, D1S Course on Twitter is how you follow him. Washington Post, USA Lacrosse Magazine. Patrick, always appreciate you, sir. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday, and I'll see you tonight.
Thanks so much for having me, Glenn.
Patrick Stevens with us as he is every Tuesday here on GCR. Look, if you've never, by the way, hour number 1 of today's show is in the books. Also brought to you by A.J. Michaels. Expert and award-winning A.J. Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. 2 things. First, if you've never been, Patrick's point is well taken. Hopkins, Maryland is not quite the same in College Park as it is at Hopkins. He's right about this. For those of us that have been to many of these games over the years, we know the atmosphere when it feels like a place is packed. In some years, it's been there have been years at Homewood Field where there have been literally no seats available, no tickets available to get in. That energy is a little bit different than when you've got 10,000 people in a 60,000-seat stadium. It just feels different. It's still the same amount of people. Like, I get it. Somebody's told, that doesn't make any sense. Go experience it, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It feels different. And yet, because they confine everyone into the same area at Maryland Stadium for lacrosse games, you still get a real atmosphere and a real energy for a Hopkins-Maryland game at Maryland. It's just not quite the same as the craziness of a Hopkins game or a game at Hopkins. What I would tell you is if you've never been, and I say this all the time, if you're a Baltimore sports fan, and by that you mean you like the Ravens and the Orioles and like Maryland basketball if they're good, that's fine. There's nothing. I'm not trying to tell you how to be a fan, but I wish that you'd be willing to expand your horizons a little bit. I've said a lot over the years. It's always a bummer to me when someone who's a local sports fan is like, yeah, and I love the Capitals. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. If you like hockey, I get it. I don't know why the Capitals, but like, okay, cool. It has nothing to do with local, but like, God bless you. Have you ever considered the other things that we have? Have you ever thought about that? Like, have you ever considered maybe I'll go to a Morgan Coppin basketball game once? See what that's about. Why it is there's so many people in this community that care so much about it. They're not going to talk about it on Sports Center. They're not going to get the same play on Twitter. So I know why it is that you've been drawn to it's either a major professional sport or I don't care. But have you ever tried it? Never given it a shot? And I'll say the same thing about lacrosse in general. Obviously, for some people in our area, lacrosse is life. Like, you care more about lacrosse than you care about anything else. I know those people. I know them well. I see them all the time. They're my people. And for some people, it's more like a passing thing. Like, I'll watch a championship game on Memorial Day if Maryland or Hopkins or somebody's in it. But otherwise, meh, I don't really care. This is the way to kind of indoctrinate yourself as a Maryland-Hopkins game. And the fact that we get one this year when both teams are playing well, when both teams are viable Final Four contenders, creates a little bit more electricity for it. Patrick's not wrong. It would be nicer if it was at Homewood Field, and it would. But for some people, you don't want to deal with that. Like, I'll be the defender of that too.
The first thing I think of is how does Hopkins deal with traffic and parking?
I'm so glad you brought that
for
up.
These types of
Charles,
events.
It's kind of where I was going. Like I feel that, particularly now at 40. I remember the first time I took myself to a Maryland Hopkins game, and I didn't care. Like, I was so excited about it, and it was when they used to play it on Friday night, which was, oh God, that was the best. I don't know why I care so much more about it being Friday night than Saturday night, but like a Friday night, I was there, I want to say 06? The 06 game is the first time I like have a memory of a Hopkins Maryland game, is because that was a game where Joe Walters from Maryland just went nuts. Like, started doing things that it didn't look like he was playing lacrosse. It looked like he was playing basketball. Like, he looked like LeBron James, just attacking and doing things.
Was just able to take over.
Yes, and I was like, oh my God. That wasn't the first one I went to, but I remember that game. That was at Homewood Field. It was definitely a Friday night, and I remember I went. By the way, I went by myself. I had a buddy that was going to go. With me, and he didn't show. This is before texting. Like, we had cell phones. He wasn't answering his phone, and I was like, the hell with it, I'm going. And over the years, I've gone to lots of Hopkins games and like PL events where parking and it's all been a nightmare for me. And legitimately, like, if I don't get there 30 minutes before the game, am I certain that I'm going to get a seat? That's been a real problem at Hopkins Maryland games over the years. So if you're in that camp where you're like, dude, I go, but I kind of don't want to go when it's at Hopkins because I want to be comfortable, well, Saturday night presents that opportunity for you. If you don't want to deal with the nightmares of a lot of people packed into a small place, and if you get claustrophobic and all of those things, at Maryland you're not going to deal with that. So by the way, if you're going to Army-Navy instead, on board with that. That's another great game on Saturday night, and it's a game worth going to. This is not me, specifically saying you can either go to Johns Hopkins, Maryland, or you're not. You're terrible. But Hopkins, Maryland is something very unique for Baltimore sports fans. There are more connections. You know more local people that have played for these two programs. You might have gone to school with them. You might have lived down the street from them at some point. I would encourage that if you've never been, this is a great year to go. It's a great year. I haven't looked at the weather. I mean, I'd like to think it's going to be nice on Saturday night.
Right.
I hope that it doesn't get ruined for me. I unfortunately, so I have, this is like a very rare occasion in my life where I don't have a game Saturday night because Stevenson plays on Friday night. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I've got a Loyola game Saturday afternoon, and then I have Saturday night free, and so I'm trying to talk my wife into taking the boys, and she's of course the one doing the math of like, well, the game wouldn't be over until 9, and then we wouldn't be back until 10:30, and then I'm like, okay, calm down. Let's just go. Let's just go anyway. So I want to take my sons because they're super into lacrosse now because they both play, and I think it'd be cool for them to experience like a big game.
Right.
So I would like to take them on Saturday.
Like even
You
just the
gotta figure it
feeling
out,
of like,
though.
oh, they play lacrosse in this stadium.
Right,
They've probably
correct.
been to Maryland football games.
No, they've been to basketball. They've never been to a football. It's just because of my work schedule. It's just tough for me to take them to games, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
difficult
But seeing
thing to do.
lacrosse played in such a big stadium, well,
Yeah, it's cool. And so I'm trying to make it happen. I'm just imploring, if you've never done it, I would often say we often used to do like the bucket list thing. Like what are the things that you have to do? You have to experience as a Baltimore sports fan, right? And the easy ones are Orioles opening day, Preakness, Ravens Steelers,
Orioles World Series parade.
Yes, that would be nice. Like I would like that to be on the list, but things that you can actually control. Like you can go to all of these events, and those are easy ones. I would say you can't get 5 deep without Hopkins, Maryland lacrosse showing up on the list. And there are ones that are more like I think that I absolutely am of the belief that Morgan Coppin basketball should be high on the list. Some people say, well, you got to go to the Loyola Calvert Hall. I don't feel as strongly about that as other people
dodgeball's on
do.
that list, I think.
No,
Yeah.
didn't quite make it, but I appreciate it and continue to try to put it over.
the average Joes. Is
Um,
that what they are?
They're the outstanding Tigers.
The man was a national champion. Don't be disrespectful to him,
Yeah,
Charles.
Yeah.
He was a
Who'd you
national.
guys beat?
he
Who'd
was
you
a
guys beat?
national
in that
champion.
Could be
match?
the Grand Valley State, dude.
Yeah, like
6-time defending
Yeah,
champs, and we
right.
took them down.
Yeah,
All right.
It shows some respect. Okay,
Hey,
shows some
We were down
respect.
2-0.
They're in,
Came back and won 3-2.
Is that the one in Michigan or are they?
It is
down?
Michigan, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. It's where Matt Judon went.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is correct. That's a great point. He won some sort of fishing event I saw over the weekend. There was like
Really?
him, DeAndre Hopkins, and somebody else did like a celebrity fishing show on CBS.
Did you see the video of AB trying to hold the fish and it was like flopping in his hands and he couldn't like get a good grasp on it?
I did not see that video. No.
Show you later.
Look, I don't think in fact I would say outside of those first 3, outside of Ravens Steelers, Orioles opening day, and Preakness, that's where it's more significant to me than random primetime Ravens game. It's more significant to me than, Orioles Yankees or Orioles Red Sox, which are fine, but unfortunately tend to have a lot more fans from the other team involved over the years. Like I think those are all good things, but I think that Hopkins, Maryland is more significant than any of those. To be a well-rounded, to be someone that really understands Baltimore sports. It used to be that back when all these things mattered, these were the things that we had like on the old radio station make hiring decisions based on this stuff. Like, cool, so you know about the Ravens. What else do you know about? Do you really know Baltimore sports, or do you just know the Ravens? And I appreciate it. That was one of the things that I was like, there are very few things about that place that I was proud of, but I was kind of proud of that we didn't pretend like there were 2 sports that existed in Baltimore, that like these things mattered. By the way, I'm also going to invite a Navy lacrosse player on this week. We're going to try to catch up with a Hopkins player this week, a Navy player. I think I just realized I never actually talked to Maryland. We'll see. Maybe we'll squeeze Maryland in as well. I'm a little behind the 8 ball on that one. Like, I care, and I think we all should care, and I think we should be proud of something that matters, that's unique, and is ours. And I think that's cooler than trying to bite something that isn't ours. And that's not if you want to be I'm a Phoenix Suns fan. That has nothing to do with Baltimore. You have every right to do those things. But I think it's cooler to embrace and celebrate the things that are unique about us than it is to bite onto these other things.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. That sounded like a sermon.
It was, yeah.
I don't mean it to be as preachy. I don't mean that. There are certain things that I think that you should experience to be a well-rounded Baltimore sports fan. And in order to be able to celebrate, I just wish that we could celebrate our own things. And Hopkins, Maryland is a really cool, unique local rivalry.
I don't want to burst the bubble. The weather Saturday night.
Don't say this.
Okay. I just won't.
All right, fine. Go ahead.
I think there's always
What? What is it? What does it say?
Potential for heavy rainfall.
Get the F out of here.
90% chance of rain. But maybe that could be a good thing because the Orioles play Saturday night. So if you're going to the Orioles game, they're not going to cancel the lacrosse game for rain.
No, they're not, but it's still going to be unpleasant. I don't care for that.
There will be a sport on that you can go to. So.
Yeah.
But I think to add to it, there's always something about watching a game or a sporting event in like a city atmosphere, and you don't get many opportunities like that in Baltimore, given that obviously the Ravens and the Orioles play and they're the professional teams, but like not a lot of the college teams have like
if you experienced either the Maryland Loyola or Johns Hopkins Loyola lacrosse games at the beginning of the season, and I keep coming back, there are opportunities for you to experience something real that's unique, and those are those opportunities. Like you had those chances at the beginning of the year with Maryland Loyola and Hopkins Loyola. And Hopkins is going to host the Big Ten tournament this year, and there's a chance that you're going to get a Hopkins-Maryland rematch in the Big Ten tournament at Homewood Field, which would be dope. And I would encourage you to check that out. This is not me uniquely saying there's only one way to do this, but it's not crazy. Hopkins, Maryland is a big deal, and I think everybody should experience it. And I think this is a particularly cool year in order to experience it because both teams are very good. Both teams have a legitimate chance. I don't, they're not number one. Neither one's number one. To Patrick's point, I think it's a stretch to say that Hopkins is a legitimate national title contender right now, but I don't know. They've been playing really good lacrosse. Like if they beat Maryland on Saturday night, suddenly, who knows? Maybe you got to put them in that conversation. And they're definitely, I think, a Final Four contender for sure. And then I feel like there was something else I wanted to say before we took a break, but we ran out of time. We need to get our break in before we talk to Pete Medhurst. So we'll do that next. We'll grab a break, then we'll come back in. We'll preview Orioles Nationals getting underway tonight. Our buddy Pete Medhurst, part of the Nationals broadcast team, will join us then. If you missed it last night, Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley, Mike Boddicker, Talking Baseball, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video. You can find it in any of those locations. Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley, Mike Boddicker, Talking Baseball on Facebook Live. Pete Medhurst, our buddy, joins us next. He'll also tell us a little about Navy Army lacrosse as well. That's on the way. Glenn Clark Radio.
Baseball season is finally here, and what better way to celebrate than with some fresh gear from Birdland Sports. As a small business run by O's fans, Birdland Sports offers a great selection of unofficial merchandise, including unique designs like Birds Are Coming tees, player cartoon shirts, and championship prediction designs. And the best part, their prices are more affordable than the big guys. Get high-quality gear without breaking the bank. So whether you're heading to the ballpark or watching from home, show your love for the birds with Birdland Sports. Visit birdlandsports.com today to browse their collection and gear up for the season. Let's go O's!
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Another Orioles season is in the books, and the Bat-Around was there every step of the way as the Birds posted their first winning season in 6 years. And after promoting 2 #1 overall prospects in Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, Mike Elias has said it's liftoff from here. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and along with my co-host Zach Goodman, we'll be here every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon all off season, discussing every signing, trade, and waiver claim as we navigate the cold winter months that lead to spring training. You can watch us at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen live at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. And if you miss a show, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. So tune into the Bat-Around with Paul Valley and Zach Goodman every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon right here at PressBox Sports.
Costas Inn has been serving up delicious steamed crabs for over 50 years. Lately, the crabs you want to eat when the weather warms up have gotten harder and harder to get. So get your crab eating game plan in place. Make sure to stick this number on your fridge, 410-477-1975. Call ahead and reserve the size crabs you want. You may be able to walk in, but you may also be disappointed at the size or maybe even get shut out altogether. So call ahead, have a plan, and then arrive on your crab eating vacation. Costas also has delicious crab soup and crab cakes. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For more than 50 years, they've been satisfying crab lovers in and around Baltimore.
If you need more of Glenn, you can also hear him every Sunday with Rita on 105.7 The Fan. But also, if you need more of Glenn, what's wrong with you?
It's a fair question. By the way, here's a wild story that I just saw pop up this morning. Brandon Bean, Bills GM, says Damar Hamlin has been cleared to resume full football activities. Man, I mean, like that's unbelievable. Like, just really thinking about where that was. That is a really cool story, man. That's I know we kind of, like, the moment Damar Hamlin was okay, we kind of stopped obsessing about Damar Hamlin, but that's just purely miraculous, man. Awesome story. That was neat to see this morning, and I was really happy about that. All right, Orioles and Nationals playing a quick 2-game set down in D.C. this week. I always hate these weeks. I really don't care for there being 2 baseball games in the middle of the week and 2 off days during the course of the week. Like, we just got baseball back. Like, I don't need 2 off days in my life. Although I did enjoy watching basketball last night. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on in the show. But let's preview that, and also we'll talk a little Army-Navy lacrosse with our next guest. He's been part of the Nationals broadcast team for the last few years. He is also the voice of Navy Athletics. He is our friend, Mr. Pete Medhurst, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Pedro, what's going on, buddy?
Glenn Clark Radio, legend. What's up, buddy?
How you doing, dude? Everything good?
Hey, man, sun's up outside, and it's ready to attack another day here. You mentioned what a great menu this week for the local sports fan. I mean, we've got, 2 great baseball games coming up, I think, over the next 2 nights. And then on the weekend, just an incredible lacrosse weekend as we wind down the regular season. So what a great week for local sports fans here in the area. Can't wait to see it all unveiled.
Hey, before we get to Orioles Nationals, let me start with Navy lacrosse, because you're going to have to explain to me how did this happen? What flipped after what was obviously a mess of a start and injury issues, and it looked like things were going drastically the wrong way? What changed over the course of the last few weeks to allow Navy to be in this position?
I think it's twofold, Glenn. I think, first of all, you had a team that lost significant leadership. Skalniak going down, Swanson going down, Xavier Arline not being able to get back to full strength. So when you lose 3 massive contributors to your 6-on-6 offense, it becomes a huge deal. I think what happened is you saw some other leaders emerge. They've always felt they were a deep team, and there's a lot of freshmen and sophomores playing a gigantic role right now. A.J. Hernandez on the defensive end, Mac Haley, Henry Tolker up front, the emergence of Paul Garza now as a second-line midfielder, the young fella out of Walkersville as a freshman, has made some game-changing plays in the last couple of weeks against teams like Loyola. And then this week, Lafayette had creeped back to within 6-5, and the tempo was at Lafayette's tempo. And then Garza unleashes a rocket from the perimeter and completely changed the fourth quarter of that game. So, and let's face it, the last 4 games in this win streak, Glenn, they've actually had the same players on the field the whole time. So that continuity has been fantastic, and goalie Pat Ryan has just been marvelous, as fans saw in that Loyola game when he made 23 saves on the night.
Holy hell, was he unbelievable that particular night. Look, I know at this point they're going to have to, continue this run. Like, there's not a path for them to get in as an at-large. Like, can they do, at this point, having seen what they did against Loyola and BU specifically, do you find yourself saying, like, no, there's really a world in which they could beat every team they play between now and Selection Sunday?
Glenn, I thought coming into this season, I thought the Patriot League, if everybody stayed healthy, I thought the Patriot League was legitimately 4 teams deep, if not even a 5th, because with, a face-off specialist like Sisselberger and some solid returning guys on both offense and defense, you knew Lehigh, I think, even had an opportunity to compete. So the league is really shaping up as tough as I thought it could be. I mean, Joe's kids at Army have played very good lacrosse. They've been very consistent. Obviously, Cornell losing to them 11-10, on Saturday. There's no shame in that defeat. They've done everything that they're supposed to do, and in impressive fashion. I mean, they knock off Rutgers early in the season, so this is a very talented lacrosse team. But I think on the right days, BU, Loyola, Navy, even Lehigh, all very capable of playing, with each other. And the team that, makes the fewest mistakes, I know it sounds cliche-ish, but, Army's life and death a couple of weeks to go to win in Hamilton against Colgate. So they're not unbeatable, but they're mighty damn good, I'll tell you that. So I think the Patriot League tournament is shaping up to be just an amazing couple of days of lacrosse.
No doubt. It can be absolutely electric. I am with you on that. All right, Pete Medhurst with us here on GCR. Orioles Nationals for 2 games this week. Pete, I asked this question, and I'm sure you understand what I'm asking generically. What are the Nationals in 2023? Like, what is their direction? Look, man, if you presented the opportunity in Baltimore to say, hey, you can win a World Series, but you might have to wander in the wilderness for a little while afterwards, I think we'd all say, yeah, okay, go ahead. Like, we'll sign up. We'll take that trade-off. But what is the franchise at this point here in 2023?
Glenn, that's a hell of a question. I'm not really sure what their identity is right now. I think that identity is very much in progress at this point. They've been in a ton of games. The record could be much better than 5-11 with a couple of key 2-out hits here and there. That's the one thing that's really that's eluded them tremendously so far this year. But you're getting the kind of production all of a sudden that was expected of Victor Robles several years ago. And that's been a pleasant surprise for this team. Lane Thomas has played well. Joey Meneses is starting to find the bat that he had a little bit last year. He got off to a slow start. Jamer Candelario over the last couple of days been on fire. So, from that standpoint, you're getting something from players you had no idea. I mean, Candelario is a guy that was supposed to be a really good player and has shown flashes of being that guy. But all of a sudden, he's 29 years old, and now when you go multiple teams at the age of 29, this is a make or break year, I think, for Candelario in terms of his career. I mean, Luis Garcia is a good young hitter at second base. He's only 23 years old. Keibert Ruiz is their catcher for the next 6 to 8 years with the extension that he signed, and mechanically, defensively, he's fantastic. So, you have to like what you see there. The ultimate question is can any of these guys do it, Glenn, consistently? And we just haven't seen it from any of them through the course of their major league careers. There's no resume for any of these guys to point to and say, okay, yeah, we're going to get that from this guy. We're going to get that from that guy. There is no resume. I mean, Stone Garrett has come back up here, and he looks like, Babe Ruth all of a sudden. But can he keep that up over the next 10 to 20 games? Or is this just a short burst of a guy that right now finds himself 9 for 18 at the plate for this baseball team since he's been recalled from the minors?
For the last couple of seasons, the Orioles were in a place where they were playing a lot of young players, some of whom we thought might have a chance to be a part of something, but it was a more defined rebuild. Is this a defined – obviously we're past the days of tanking now in baseball because they've de-incentivized it, but, is this a defined rebuild for the Nationals, or is it more – with the questions about ownership moving forward, and obviously they're still being, no settlement with Masson, which I believe has been an issue that we've been dealing with, I don't know, for 40 years at this point, I think since I've been alive. Is it a defined rebuild or more of like, hey, let's see who sticks from this group of young players, and at some point maybe we'll spend money again? That's the part that I'm struggling with.
No, I mean, look, I don't – whatever you label it, the fact that they made the trades that they made, and they have the young players in the system now that will reset the future. The guys that were the Bryce Harpers, the Steven Strasburgs, the Anthony Rendones, that led that first burst of championship baseball here in the Washington area. There's no doubt in my mind that the kids that were acquired, James Wood, Elijah Green, Robert Hassel, you got a couple of pitchers in there. One guy was throwing a bucko-1 the other night down at single A ball very impressively. So that's your rebuild. It's not necessarily happening at the major league level. I mean, look at the veterans that came through Baltimore the last couple of years, guys that were just, on other teams, they're, fourth outfielders or fifth infielders, just to keep the team afloat while Mike Elias was trying to acquire the kind of young talent you need to replenish your minor league system. Well, Mike Rizzo's going through the same thing right now, not because he wants to, but that's just the situation that he's been put in, because one minute you think there could be a potential sale, and I understand what the learners are looking for in terms of price, but I also understand why potential bidders would balk at the Washington opportunity right now, because, as you mentioned correctly, and I think even people who may entertain trying to put in a bid on the Orioles maybe in the future, you just don't know what the ultimate value of the franchise is, and that's very hard to get people to spend that kind of money, get that kind of funding to put into a pro sports team right now. And the ultimate thing is, as we've seen with all these regional sports networks, Glenn, ironically, Masson might be on better footing than a lot of these other ones out there. So that's the amazing thing about all of this.
What a world, right?
I mean, at least Masson's not underwater right now like a lot of these other regional sports networks are.
God. I mean, it's true. They're not a part of the Bally Sports Group, so they've got that going for them, but that's about the list of things.
They're not Bally's. They're not Diamond.
Right.
They don't have Major League Baseball looking to sue them, per se, looking for their check. I mean, you got two teams right now that are like, hey, where's our check? You know what it's like not to get paid, Glenn.
Oh, do I ever? You and I
have lived that, Hoss. Okay, you know what it's like when you're sitting there waiting for a check that you basically got to threaten legal action to go get, and that's what these teams might have to do now to get some money from some of these regional sports networks that they thought they were going to have to put into their franchise.
Oh, man. Well, boy, Pete just made it really real. You guys, you'll never hear that story, but Pete knows. Pete knows well. Hey,
that'll be chapter 5 in the Glenn Clark biography.
Oh, man. Hey, dude, you got to do what you got to do. You know, you got to do what you got to do around here. We're going to see I want to bring up a couple guys, too, if I could. We're going to see Josiah Gray start for the Nationals tonight. Randomly, we found out last summer, huge Ravens fan, despite the fact that he has no connection to the area. Just grew up really loving watching Ray Lewis, and is a massive Ravens fan. Came out to training camp last summer, which was really neat. Do we know yet that Josiah Gray is definitely a major league pitcher?
That's a great question. I think he has the material, but I think he's a work in progress because, he's added another pitch to his repertoire. They want him to change speeds more. He's got a fastball. It's got some giddy up. Sometimes it stays straight. When it does, he's susceptible to the long ball. But when he can get that thing to move a little bit, then, he's a guy that pitches, I think, in harder luck than an 0-3 record, indicates. That it's real simple for him, though, Glenn. In 16 2/3, I mean, he's given up 4 home runs. so far on the year, and he's just got to keep the ball in the ballpark. Otherwise, he pitches an exciting level of baseball. There's a competitiveness to him that I like. You get some guys that just go up there and throw, and when it's all over with, they just kind of, walk off, realizing they can just go pick up their phone in the clubhouse, check their bank account, look at all the commas and zeros, and everybody's okay. But there's a fight to Josiah Gray. There's competitiveness to Josiah Gray that I like. Remember, this is a guy that at Lemoyne, the Division II level, started out as an infielder. It was going to be a shortstop, I think it was. And then they eventually said, wait a minute, man, you got an electric arm. Let's see what you can do as a pitcher. So I think this is still very much a foundation of building. He's just doing it at the big league level. Had he stayed in the Dodgers system, then he's allowed to stay in the minor leagues and continue to develop properly. He's just learning on the job at the big league level and going through some of those growing pains. I do believe, though, there is a major league pitcher there with Josiah Gray.
And then, look, man, a decade ago, the Orioles drafted Hunter Harvey in the first round, and he is a frustrating name for Orioles fans because he's brought up as a guy in an era of drafting where the Orioles had quite a few missteps and made a lot of decisions that were puzzling and trying to save money. And I like Hunter Harvey a lot. As I got to know him, I had a ton of conversations with him. Even when he was, going through frustrating times, he was a good dude. It seemed like a year ago he was a borderline kind of revelation in the bullpen for the Nationals. What did he become when he got away from Baltimore and was kind of able to focus and just sort of do one thing?
I think it's easy. Health.
Yeah.
I think he's just been healthy. He's been available. He's been able to pitch. How do you get better? By pitching. I think it's simply been health with him. I'm with you. I remember watching Hunter Harvey at Bowie a lot, and you could see there were tools in the toolbox. The ultimate question was every time he'd start making some progress, he's a guy, he would, injury would find him. That's really the nuts and bolts in my mind as it pertains to Hunter Harvey. It's a guy that, finally got to pitch in 38 games last year at the big league level. It's by far and away the most he's been able to pitch at any level, even when you combine the minor league levels within a season. But you can't tell me in the short term that he's a guy that flashed even in Baltimore. When you go back, I think it was 19, he got into a handful of games, and you're like, yeah, this is the guy they think they're getting. There was always electricity in the arm. We saw it last year. In 39 1/3, I think it was around 45 or 46 strikeouts for him. So he's a guy that's got all the tools. There's no doubt about that. The biggest thing for him has just been staying healthy, my friend. And, the one thing I love about him is, he's a guy that when he comes, into the game, he's going to throw strikes. I don't have to worry about, Hunter Harvey nibbling up there at the plate. That's a guy that's gonna challenge people, and sometimes you get burned when you do that. But that's a guy that's always had the toolbox, and when he shows up, you're going to get something big from him. You just hope he can stay healthy, and he's become a very reliable piece in their bullpen right now, trying to get that bridge to Kyle Finnegan in the back end.
Oh boy, with the Orioles bullpen struggle, somebody that maybe could have helped around here at the moment. Pete Medhurst.
But you know what? Yeah. Hey, but in defending the Orioles, though, on that, Glenn, you couldn't at that point.
Oh yeah, no,
you're like, you didn't know that he was going to turn back into this player. So that's and again, when a guy, with pitchers especially, when a guy consistently comes up lame, at some point a team has got to fish or cut bait on that guy. And look, sometimes guys do reclimate. Sometimes guys find themselves. So, I'll tell you what, though, I can't wait to see a late inning matchup over the next two nights, potentially with Harvey and Rutschman or Mountcastle, somebody like that. It's going to be electric. It's going to be an electric matchup late in the game. If Baltimore's offense is awesome right now,
incredible.
Glenn,
it's incredible.
Awesome.
It's incredible. Now, again, they could use a little bit more pitching, and they probably should have invested a little bit more. But Jorge Mateo is a revelation this season. I liked Jorge Mateo a year ago, but the guy that's up there taking pitches, working counts, I mean, it's been a lot of fun to watch. And I make the comparison. It's obviously I'm not trying to compare Hunter Harvey to Jake Arrieta, Pete, but I said for years, like, I can be disappointed about how things worked out with Jake Arrieta and still not blame the Orioles over it. I don't think Jake Arrieta was ever going to be this guy in Baltimore, and they were left when they were trying to compete. They were kind of left with no choice but to have to make a move. So I don't blame the Orioles over it. It's just painful when the bullpen's an issue and they're running, Austin Voth back out there to get his ass kicked again, and seeing somebody that they had succeed elsewhere.
Look, I think Washington had the same thing with Lucas Giolito.
Sure.
So, I think Lucas Giolito is kind of like Baltimore's Jake Arrieta in terms of that comparison.
Yep.
And I think it's valid. And look, general managers and baseball people get paid big money to make, critical decisions. Sometimes they're tough decisions. Sometimes guys do find greener pastures somewhere else. But, I'm with you 100%. Jake Arrieta was never going to work out like that in Baltimore. And, you give him credit for finding it after leaving there, because there was so much expected of him there. And we saw in the minor leagues, we watched him grow up, and you're like, man, this is a guy that may have the goods to be a cornerstone of your rotation. But, dude, you got an offense that is averaging 5.88 runs a game right now. If the pitching for that team ever becomes reasonably consistent, I mean, they're going to be eventually right there with the Yankees, with the Rays and the Blue Jays in that division, because let's face it, dude, you have to have some offense to compete with the Jays and with the Yankees, and what the Rays are getting pitching wise. I mean, Drew Rasmussen came through, I was doing a post-game show when he pitched here. That was their number 4 starter.
Yeah.
He's their number 4 guy they rolled out.
Yep.
And he's just throwing seeds out there. So you don't know if Tampa's pitching will be that elite for the entire season, but my goodness, if it's even remotely close. And the Blue Jays did get to him a little bit over the weekend finally. So, that they proved a little bit human over the weekend. But, I mean, my goodness, what a division the American League East is going to be pretty much all season, as long as nobody incurs a large injury, even though the Yankees have already lost Giancarlo Stanton here for a little bit.
It's nice to not have to play those teams quite as much. That is good news for the Baltimore Orioles this season. Pete, obviously
no 19 games against the Rays and the Jays and the Yankees.
Much better off. I know WNAV on Saturday night for Army Navy. Is there anything else I can plug for you, my friends?
Not yet.
Okay. I will wait with bated breath for the day that there is something else, sir. I will look forward to it. At Pete Medhurst.
Not yet.
On Twitter. Make sure you follow him. I love you, brother. Always appreciate you. Let's talk soon, all right?
You got it. Anytime, pal. Have a good one.
Thanks, man. Pete Medhurst, of course, Nationals broadcast team, and, of course, Navy play-by-play voice, taking a couple of minutes for us here this morning. Orioles Nationals tonight. With Dean Kramer on the mound. And a couple people were talking yesterday, like, is Dean Kramer, like, the guy that's kind of pitching for his life tonight now? That after they come out of this, stretch this week where they're going to skip a couple of guys, like, is he the guy who is really at jeopardy of...
I guess if you have enough faith in
Zimmerman,
or...
No, Bradish would be returning at that
tomorrow,
point.
right?
No, Bradish is going to return tomorrow.
Yeah.
But they're going to...
Well, he's already kind of replaced Irvin, right? Isn't that essentially what Bradish is
Bradish is replacing Irvin because... Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I guess I wasn't doing that
Kramer's
math
got
correctly.
Somewhat more of a leash, I guess.
You say that, right?
But I mean,
like,
if he comes out and lets up 6 runs in 4 innings.
And if your point is that they have a stretch of 5 straight days after this, like I don't think they don't have an off day on Monday, so they're going to need a 5th pitcher next week. Now, they could always bullpen for a day, I guess. Like, that would be an option in this process. I think, I know it wasn't too soon for the decision they made on Cole Irvin, right? Like, they made a bold decision on Cole Irvin. So I guess we can't say it's too soon. And there's nobody to your point, Griffin, that's demanding. It's not like DL Hall is demanding that he immediately be elevated, but at some point, how many more innings is it worth him throwing in AAA, right? Like, I don't know that Dean Kramer's pitching for his job tonight, but I certainly get it. this team, if they want to contend, can't just continue to throw guys out there every fifth day and get their brains beat in. They have to make difficult decisions and say, we got to try something else because we are attempting to win. It's no longer just you get to go out there and struggle some more. Like, at some point, they'll have to make a decision in that process. Today's show is also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Griffin, look at this paper. Make sure that's accurate here. We're going to get back into some Lamar Jackson conversation this morning. If you missed it earlier today, I did move the meter back to 90%. Lamar-O-Meter update was back to 90% after Tim Barbalace dropped it down all the way to 81 yesterday. So, again, moved it all the way back up to 90% on the Lamar-O-Meter. That's what we did. Of course, that's in reaction, in part, a lot of conversation in the last 24 hours about the impact of Jalen Hurts' contract, what it means for the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson. I told you I'm not sure. In a normal world, it would mean that it feels like the market's been set, but it's felt like the market's been set before now, and yet nothing changed. So I don't know. Let's talk more about it. Our next guest wrote something today for Yahoo Sports. She was talking about the winners and losers in the Jalen Hurts contract and referenced the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and you can probably figure out which side she thought they were on when it comes to this. She is Yahoo Sports NFL writer Jori Epstein, and she's with us now here on GCR. Jori, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to catch up. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
You bet. Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Glenn.
Jori, I'm in a weird place, right? Because inherently, I think Lamar Jackson's, this is bad news for him. And it's one more player that wasn't willing to fight for a Deshaun Watson contract. And I do think it should be thought of as good news for the Baltimore Ravens. But everything about these negotiations have been so bizarre, I'm just not really sure what it actually matters. I don't know that we can even use logical analysis and project it onto the Lamar Jackson situation.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question because, like you said, so many twists and turns have come in this deal and then so many NFL deals that it's hard to make any sweeping assertions. But what I will say is that I had an NFC executive tell me last week when I was writing about what Odell's signing meant to Lamar that he thinks Lamar needs to realize Deshaun Watson was an anomaly. He was a one-off. And going forward, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, they're not going to get fully guaranteed contracts. And I think Jalen Hurts was an example of that. So the more we see that the quarterback market may rise, but it doesn't change inherently in its structure, I think it makes it harder for Lamar Jackson to get the deal that he thought he wanted.
I inherently agree with that. And I think it was always obvious the Ravens weren't going to be a team that were going to go there unless someone else did. And then they could say, hey, look, it wasn't our fault. You guys put a fully guaranteed offer out there, so we had to match it. The fact that no one is, I think it's clear. But I guess the weird part for me is, like, if you're Lamar and you've been hell-bent on this, did you just tuck your tail between your legs? Like, what? I don't know what you do. I don't know that you just walk in and say, well, I tried, now I give up, versus saying, look, I'm still going to do anything in my power to try to make it seem like I have leverage over you, because at the end of the day, you clearly need me. That's why you went out and overspent for Odell Beckham.
Absolutely. No, I think it's really difficult because if you're Lamar, well, I don't have direct reporting on the numbers that he got, but a lot of the reporting I'm seeing out there is that Lamar's deal was very similar in structure and in cost to what Jalen Hurts just got, and he's already turned that down. So if you're Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert starting fresh, you can say, hey, that's the floor. Like, that's what quarterbacks are worth. I've done as much as him, especially if you're Joe Burrow and you've been to a Super Bowl. That with Lamar, I mean, you have people who will say, even if he is a former MVP and even if he has the talent, his health late in the season is concerning. His playoff record is not necessarily concerning, but it doesn't help his case relative to a Jalen Hurts who went to the Super Bowl. So I don't know how soon it will change, but I still think that, I mean, if I were a betting woman today, I would guess that he plays out the franchise tag. I think it would be really difficult to get the money he wants without having more leverage, and I think it would be really difficult to come to to terms on a deal before this season and before July 17th, which is when they would need to, just given, like you said, how much he's been dug in.
She is Jori Epstein, and she is with us here on GCR. Jori, again, going back to trying to analyze this and trying to take this information, I think it's relevant, right? Like, I think everything about Jalen Hurts and his deal, it's a contemporary, it's a guy in that world. I do think that there is the flip side of it. Like, what is it worth to the Baltimore Ravens is the part that I haven't been able to figure out. To say, hey, we're right? Like, this is what the market has shown, and we nailed it, and we knew that there wasn't going to be a market out there that you thought there was going to be, and we've been right all along, is great. But that still doesn't give you a quarterback long term, and it still puts you at risk if he does play out on the tag that, you have to do this again next year, pay him even more, and then run the risk of him walking away for a third-round compensatory pick. Like, is there a breaking point on the other side where even if you're right, and even if you did this right at every turn, at some point you might have to consider overpaying or else risking this never working out for you and this player, even if you think you've handled it appropriately?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm the Ravens, I'm saying, let's play this year on a tag. Lamar wanted to go elsewhere. Well, we didn't give him an exclusive franchise tag. We allowed him to negotiate with other teams, and look where that's gotten him. I think that if you give another franchise tag year, you have another set of data of, hey, did Lamar stay healthy this year? How did he play with a guy like OBJ? What has he shown he's worth? You'll also have a couple more contracts in the Burrow and Herbert, if not others, that will tell you. And I think there could come a time when Lamar realizes that if no more fully guaranteed quarterback contracts come up, which I think is the most likely possibility, then maybe Lamar will reassess. I think what's difficult is that you hear people say, in any negotiation, particularly with the quarterback and the team, there's got to be give and take on both sides. And Lamar is not going to win on every aspect. And that doesn't mean that he can't win on some, and it doesn't mean the Ravens should win on all of them. But that's just not how negotiations will work. One person will get their structure, another person will get their guarantees. We'll probably, it was funny when I'm reporting on this yesterday, and I'm like, we're saying, and I've got good sourcing telling me this is what Jalen just got, but when you look at the structure and when these guarantees kick in, it probably will actually not quite look the way that we think it looks right now. And so you can spin it in a certain way to make it look like you've won, but the reality is that the Ravens aren't going to let him win on every front. So I think that there will have to be an ability to come to terms. It'll also be interesting. He seems so dug in on not having an agent. Will that change in a year if he still doesn't have the deal done? I don't think so based off what we've seen, but I think it would get the deal done a lot more quickly and a lot more favorably.
Jori, let me project this out, right? Let's say that Lamar says, I don't care what anybody else does. I want to ride this thing out. I want to do the Kirk Cousins thing, and I'm going to go to true free agency. If this was a really open market, do you think there would have been a chance that someone would have been willing to say, the hell with it. We don't have to give up any picks. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and just give the guy the fully guaranteed deal and get it over with. That's the part that I continue to struggle with because I think it's fair to criticize Lamar or to at least second-guess the decisions that he's made. But is there a chance that if he's really willing to ride this out and do the Kirk Cousins bit, that he, like Kirk Cousins, can find out there is one team that would be out there that would be willing to give you the fully guaranteed deal that you want?
That's a great question because I think there's two aspects that play with what you said. One is that when Kirk got that deal and when Deshaun Watson got that deal, Deshaun had sat out for a year in this demand. That was required. Kirk had played out 2 tags without the security. Lamar has not reached that point where he's got that level of leverage yet. And so I think that is necessary before you start to have some of these kinds of demands. I think when you look at Kirk Cousins' deal also, yes, he got full guarantees, but he didn't reset the market in terms of total value.
Right.
And so you have to understand, and he got, what was it, a 3-year deal, 2-year deal, depending on which deal you're talking about. And so it wasn't 5 years fully guaranteed. And so again, I think that goes back to the idea that you might get full guarantees, but it's going to be a shorter deal, and you're probably going to have to do a couple of years betting on yourself on the franchise tag, which you could make the case both ways. And yes, you can max out, but also given Lamar's injury history, do you want to do that? And given how much he uses his legs, which are a depreciating asset. I do think the team wants him. I think that also you have how desperate sounds like a little bit of a harsh word, but how serious is a team that kind of like the Jets with Aaron Rodgers this year, where they feel like that is their missing piece and they have the team assembled? Because if you're going to give Lamar a deal like that, you're going to upset other people around the league. You're going to set this precedent. You're going to make it harder in your other negotiations, just given how unusual and rare fully guaranteed contracts are, that I think that the circumstances would have to be so unique that I don't know that a team is going to – I think a team would give him a fully guaranteed contract that's like 80% of what he could get in total value.
Interesting. Look, I understand everything you're saying, and I'm boy, it's easy for me to sit back and say, and you're losing money in the process, right? Or losing potential money in the process. So why not just do a deal? But if he is, for whatever reason, if he's hell bent on this, and whether it's because, he thinks that he has been, done wrong in this process, he thinks there's been a conspiracy against him, he thinks there's been collusion. I don't know. If he's dug in on this, I still don't know what changes. Like I just keep coming back to that. Like I don't know what the next step is in order to make this work, even if we accept everything as fact that this is the market now, this is where he is, but he still has to be the one to make the decision to say, okay, fine, I'll accept that, and he's given us no inclination that he will, and that's the tough part.
Absolutely, and it's funny, even just hearing myself say this, I feel strange because a lot of times I am very pro-player, and the players should get what they're worth, and even if it's way more money than most of us will ever make in our lives, and that they're getting in a year, they have the right to demand what it's worth, and it's not like the money's going somewhere. This is part of the salary cap, so it's not like, oh, you get to save it. I mean, there are restrictions anyway. What I do think is the case, though, I mean, I don't know. I just think one of the things that interest me in terms of the Odell Beckham pickup is that Odell, we'll see what he can do on the field, but he's got this charisma and this energy that Lamar seems to attract to me. It was very telling that Lamar was not only happy he was there, but willing to post about him. Because again, that was like the first positive Ravens related post we've seen from him since, I don't know, November.
No question.
And I think that, I mean, I've been based in Dallas the last 7 years until about a month ago, and the Cowboys were recruiting Odell pretty hard, and I had some guys in the locker room who were taking Odell to the Mavs game even when he wasn't even cleared to play while he was on his visit, and other guys say, hey, if he wants to help us win, great, but if he wants to be here for a circus, we don't need a circus. But maybe in some ways the Ravens do need a circus, not a circus in the sense of things going crazy, but one, a distraction, and two, just this like infusion of positive energy, which I think Odell is capable of providing, particularly when he gets along well with the quarterback. And I think that Odell might also be someone who says, like, look, I saw what it was like to not get a deal last year when I wanted it. I had to bet on myself with this one-year deal. Odell got more money from the Ravens than I expected him to get, and quite frankly, when I saw the $15 million tag, I was shocked at how much of it ended up being guaranteed. But I think that that'll be an interesting perspective, too, and it doesn't mean that Lamar will totally change his perspective, get an agent, take a 60% guaranteed contract, et cetera. But I think over the course of the next year, if he plays out this tag, which I think he would be wise to do, because if he doesn't, I think it'll be really difficult for him to get the kind of deal he wants. I think if he plays out this tag, there will be new information impacting the decision that will allow the negotiations to reach a point where it's not just, hey, he changed his mind, because they will be operating within a different framework.
I know you wrote about it, and I saw that. I'm going to add another layer to it, Jori. I thought, and combined with the Michael Lombardi report from last week, I wonder if it's interesting that we've always said this was simply about money with Lamar Jackson, and maybe there's a little bit coming out now that's like, hey, by the way, also, you've really kind of screwed me at the wide receiver position over these years. Like, I've been really nice about it, and I haven't been a diva, and I haven't freaked out, and I've been a good soldier, but, like, you have done nothing for me. Like, you can say, well, we spent 2 first-round picks, and then you got rid of one of them and replaced them with nothing, and it, by the way, and it was a historic wide receiver draft, and you got me like the 10th best one from that draft in Hollywood Brown. Like, I do wonder if there was a little bit that was coming out with this that was, hey, yes, I want money, but I also want you to stop devaluing wide receiver and then trying to negotiate against me about production when you're the ones that have failed to put guys out on the field, whereas Jalen Hurts has been given, caviar, and I've been trying to deal with like a ham sandwich.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's fair. You can't compare the offensive supporting cast that Jalen and Lamar have had. And I was actually pretty shocked last week to read that since the Ravens became an organization in 1996, they've never had a Pro Bowl receiver unless you count Devin Duvernay at special teams, which I don't. So I think that one speaks to what Lamar has done, and he should be given more credit. And I think, too, I don't know where Odell plays into it. Do I think, as Mark Dominic, the former NFL GM, told me last week, that signing Odell is an olive branch of sorts of like, hey, we're going to try? Yes. Do I think that we know how healthy he'll be, how much he'll be able to have an impact? Like, it would be great if Odell could do for Lamar and the Ravens what he did for Matthew Stafford and the Rams in that Super Bowl run. But Can he do that after now 2 ACL tears, not playing at all last year? I mean, I think there are question marks. And so if I were the Ravens, I mean, I think you need to draft a receiver very, very early this year. And I think you need to continue to put those pieces around him. I'm also really interested in what the Todd Monken offense will look like, because he's got more of a receiver background, which to me makes an Odell acquisition more valuable than if you were still with Greg Roman. So I think that there are different pieces in play from a coordinator standpoint to a receiver standpoint. I don't think that they've got them all in play. And I think maybe that's something that if you're Lamar, you say, hey, if you can get me A, B, and C, that's great. But I also think that where teams sometimes run into trouble, and I've seen this a lot with the Cowboys rhetoric, is, hey, Dak, if you're making $40 million, we're not going to get you all your receivers. Like, you need to elevate the supporting cast. And while the quarterback does need to, like you said, a Jalen Hurts, I mean, so many of these guys around the league who are playing at a high level, unless you're Patrick Mahomes post Tyreek Hill, these guys have the supporting cast also, and it's just a little bit unrealistic to not give them that. So I don't know. I think that also, though, when you look at the length of the Odell contract, that 1 year, to me, that's a team that's saying, let's see what Lamar is going to do on the franchise tag. It's not a team that's saying, here's Odell for 4 years with the Lamar extension.
I agree with that, although, again, like, they're also tied in for a lot of dead money on the cap if Odell's not around the following year. So it definitely comes off like they're hoping it's an experiment that works out, because otherwise it's going to cost them a significant penalty in 2024 if Odell Beckham's not around. It'll be like $10 million in dead cap space, and you want to question the money they're paying him. That is an even more questionable part. You would much rather that just sort of come off now and not be a penalty you pay later. Jori Epstein, what can we plug for you? I know it's at Jori Epstein on Twitter and, of course, Yahoo Sports, and we're going to retweet what you wrote about Jalen Hurts and the impact. But what else can we plug for you?
I appreciate that. I'll actually go a non-sports route since you asked. Today is actually Holocaust Remembrance Day, and I wrote the memoir of a Holocaust survivor who passed a year ago today. It's called The Upstander, the story of Max Bobin. So since you asked, I'll put that out there, that helping me carry on Max's memory and mission, I mean, that would mean the most. So I really appreciate you asking.
And you know what? I just saw that if you go to Jori's Twitter account, again, at Jori Epstein, it is linked there in her bio, a link to the book. And so you can pick it up that way. And that's a wonderful thing to do. Jori, really appreciate it. Enjoy the conversation. Thanks so much for doing this. Would love to catch up again down the road.
You too. Looking forward to it. Thanks for your time, Glenn.
Jori Epstein with us here on GCR. Again, I keep coming back to it. I understand all the logic. I understand all of it. I understand all of the reasonable analysis that's being done about this. This is one of those situations where you're like, dude, it's 3 + 3, so it equals 6. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's supposed to be that. I'm just not certain that it is. There is a giant enigma in all of this, which is that it's not binary. I don't know. And at the end of the day, it still requires Lamar Jackson to just come back and say, all right, fine. I acquiesce. I relent. And I just don't know what we've seen that suggests that's what he's going to do. And you can try to be reasonable about it and say, well, nothing is going to change. To Jori's point, I don't know if Lamar Jackson isn't saying to himself, I'll live with it. Tag me twice. Either you're paying me fully guaranteed or I'm going to go find out if the market will. And he might get his feelings hurt then too. But if he's decided this is the cross he wants to bear, this is the burden he wants to carry of being the guy that's fighting for a fully guaranteed contract, then that's his right. Or for overwhelmingly fully guaranteed, because we have been told it doesn't have to be fully guaranteed, but overwhelmingly fully guaranteed. Far more fully guaranteed than his offer and than even the contract that Jalen Hurts signed. You can disagree. You can not like it. You can feel however you want to feel about it, but I just don't know that we can reasonably project that this definitively means that that's where this is headed. I think it would be unreasonable to project that based on what we've known so far. To the point, if Joe Burrow falls in line, if Justin Herbert falls in line and their contracts are very similar to what Jalen Hurts got, then it looks bleak. It looks impossible. But Lamar's point might remain. Those guys are negotiating with one team. I don't want to negotiate with one team. I want to negotiate with every team. And the Ravens can say, well, we gave you that opportunity. We gave you the non-exclusive tag. And he can say, but then you cleared enough space to remind everybody that you were going to sign me anyway. So you didn't really give me that a chance. I don't know. And it's frustrating because we want to be able to use reason and logic and all of those things. And we think that the path is clear, and we think it's obvious what Lamar Jackson should do. But it don't work that way. He's got to choose that. And I'll continue to say, at some point, you can ignore it and pretend like it doesn't, but at some point, it becomes problematic for the Ravens. And you guys wanted to ignore that it was already problematic for the Ravens. And maybe you think that Odell Beckham saves it. It saves the offseason. Their offseason was a success simply because they got Odell Beckham. If you feel that way, you feel that way. I'm not sure that I agree with you. I think
it definitely makes it less of a failure.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely that. I agree with that. And it's exciting, and I get that it's exciting. How much better of a team do I think they are than they were at the end of the year?
I mean, yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see if it has the Rams effect.
I don't know. I think that's the problem. I don't know. They weren't able to they still don't have a second corner. And it's easy for us to sit back and say, like, well, they'll get that in the draft. Okay, well, that means they can't do anything else. And it's still easy for us to say, well, we're pretty convinced they'll be able to replace we've ignored the fact that they lost Ben Powers. Like, we've just kind of pretended like it didn't happen. I ended up getting in a back and forth with Rita about this. She's like, well, they've always been able to find that. Like, I think you're right. I think she's not wrong. Like, if there are positions where you believe the Ravens are going to be capable of figuring it out, guard is always right up there. They have a great track record of figuring it out at guard over the years. But they still have to do it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that it can't be a mess to start the season. Every time we've wanted to believe that Ben Cleveland was a thing, he kind of got thrown right back in our faces. So if it's got to be cornerback in round one, then it can't be guard.
Maybe they think Jalen Armour-Davis is going to turn the corner.
Saw a good bit of that last year. Not quite as comfortable about it. No. And I still, like, you're putting a lot of faith in David Ajabo. You're putting a lot of faith in not Jason Owe, Adafe Owe. It used to be Jason Owe.
Maybe we need to start calling him Jason.
Maybe, yeah, you should go back, right? And Adafe Owe and David Ajabo. And again, I like Adafe Owe. I don't know that I can continue to say that. And I like David Ajabo, but am I confident? I don't think I can say that. So we can keep ignoring it and say, well, it hasn't really hurt the Ravens because it hasn't hurt them drastically yet, right? Like, that's what we're really saying. Until it hurts them drastically, it hasn't hurt them. Mm-hmm. But it has hurt them, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, and it could hurt them drastically. Is it worth it? We can keep making this a one-way street and say it's all on Lamar Jackson. He should just accept it. This is the market. Deal with it. But does that make you feel better if in 2 years the Ravens don't have a quarterback? Because, again, it's easy to say, well, they'll just tag him again next year, right? Like, and we'll go through this all again. We'll keep Lamar-O-Metering it up.
I mean, I think it is interesting to point out that what Jori pointed out, that Kirk had to play under the tag twice before he had a ton of leverage, enough leverage to go out and hit a free market.
And that might very well be. Look, there were rumors of Lamar Jackson considering that years ago, that he just doesn't care the way that other people care about things. I don't. And again, because he doesn't really want to talk about it. How's that interview coming along? When are we going to get to see that, by the way? Remember a month ago he teased an interview?
The 60 minutes.
Still editing it.
When we seeing that exactly? And like you hope that means that
this is how you build suspense.
When he did it, like he was upset with the Ravens, then he decided he wasn't as upset with the Ravens, so he doesn't want to air it. Like I have no idea. But a month ago, there was a tease of an interview, and we still haven't seen it.
Maybe that's all it was. They were just like, hey, let's like put a trailer together. And,
I don't know, man. It's a really weird bit. It just went away. A month ago that happened. And it's somewhere with the plane that we lost a decade ago and we never bothered to find. Weird stuff. All right, we'll come back in. We'll get a
maybe that's what they just accidentally deleted it. They haven't felt like reshooting.
And I don't know that I blame them, but it's the difficult part about it. Until we have on the record Lamar saying whatever, we're making assumptions. So I'm making assumptions too. Maybe it is that Lamar just again acquiesces, that this is the moment where he just says, all right, fine. I tried. Maybe it is. But what are you basing that off of if you've decided that's what's happening? Like what do you have that makes you say this is the moment that Lamar breaks down? This is the moment where he comes back crawling. What are you basing that off of? I keep trying to say, to me, anything is on the table. Anything. Yes, I think the Odell Beckham, the fact they were partying together, it's the reason why the Lamar-O-Meter skyrocketed, combined with Michael Lombardi. The Ravens said, what do you want? Or he told the Ravens what he wanted. They got at least somewhat of that, and he went out. He's happy. He likes Odell Beckham. He wants to play with him. But that might only be this year. Mm-hmm. That might just be a one-year thing and say, hey, we'll go out and have fun together, but I'm still telling you, I'm doing 2 tags, and I'm beating cheeks.
Yeah.
That's the way it's going to go. I don't know.
It is still tough to see if he'll actually play on the non-exclusive tag rather than
I'd still contend there's no chance of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe again, like he hasn't cared about playing for less money than he was worth the last couple of years.
Right.
Maybe he doesn't care about it this year. Maybe this really is just a fundamental, I feel like I'm doing something and fighting for fully guaranteed contracts. And so I don't really care about anything else. Annual average value doesn't matter to me. You know, I care about one thing. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough.
So what if they give him a 1 year,
Well, that's what tag is essentially, is a fully guaranteed contract, right? Like that might be why he doesn't care and he's willing to play for the tag. Like it's fully guaranteed. But it ain't fully guaranteed for 4 years down the road, and there's more. Like if you make $49 million this year, let's just say they bump it up to that number, and Jalen Hurts has $111 million of the fully guaranteed money, he's still got more fully guaranteed money than you do. Even if it's not fully guaranteed, there's still more of it that is. I don't know, man. I don't know. I get it. I'm sick of it too. But yet I'm going to continue to talk about it every day because it's what we do. All right. Today's show has also been brought to you by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. You can bet on baseball in Maryland for the first time on your phone. And so why wouldn't you take advantage of great offers and incentives? Like right now, if you go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers, click on the PointsBet logo. Get 5 second chance bets when you deposit and bet your first $50. PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Again, to take advantage of that. We'll come back in. We'll get a tidbit and two-bit to wrap it up. Glenn Clark Radio. Hartford Community College in Bel Air, Maryland, along with the National Junior College Athletic Association's Region 20, will host the 2023 NJCAA Men's Lacrosse National Championship May 13th and 14th at Hartford Sports Complex, 401 Thomas Run Road in Bel Air. Semifinals are on Saturday, May 13th. The National Championship is Sunday, May 14th. Catch the action for $10 each day. Tickets will be available in advance or at the gate on game day. Qualifying teams will be announced.
What air conditioning company can save 50% of your energy cost and qualify you for up to $7,500 in rebates? AJ Michaels. We do more, we do it better for less. In Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Orioles phenom Gunnar Henderson, breaking down how he was able to become the top prospect in baseball at such a young age, and what could be next in his first full MLB season. Also inside, we meet lacrosse players from the men's and women's college programs across the state, and Bo Smoka breaks down another year of wide receiver issues for the Ravens. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Costas Inn has been serving up delicious steamed crabs for over 50 years. Lately, the crabs you want to eat when the weather warms up have gotten harder and harder to get. So get your crab eating game plan in place. Make sure to stick this number on your fridge, 410-477-1975. Call ahead and reserve the size crabs you want. You may be able to walk in, but you may also be disappointed at the size or maybe even get shut out altogether. So call ahead, have a plan, and then arrive on your crab eating vacation. Costas also has delicious crab soup and crab cakes. The Costas Inn at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For more than 50 years, they've been satisfying crab lovers in and around Baltimore.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Check out PressBoxOnline.com every day to find daily winners and betting advice from Jeremy Kahn. And if you want some advice about life decisions that you probably shouldn't make, here's Glenn Clark.
This is pretty funny. The report today, LSU is currently hosting Louisville transfer Haley Van Lith on an official visit. If you don't remember, Haley Van Lith was the player that Caitlin Clark was originally getting into it with when Iowa played Louisville. The original "You Can't See Me" was in reaction to Haley Van Lith, who's now potentially going to join up with Angel Reese at LSU.
Angel Reese got her back.
Creates potentially one of the all-time blood feuds in the history. That was wild, man. I just saw that pop up. Tyrann Mathieu was tweeting about it this morning. It was a report from On3 Sports that Haley Van Lith is visiting LSU. Yo. That would be wild. That would be cool. All right, winding down for a Tuesday edition of the program. I was telling you yesterday, there is some awesome sales going on right now at birdlandsports.com, including this T-shirt, the birds in – oh, no, that's not that one. Oh, did we give that one away? We gave that one to someone, didn't we? Maybe I have it. I might have actually been the one.
The birds?
The birds. I might have that one
you, actually.
In the wire lettering. Yeah. There's a 2-pack with that shirt and the Gunnar Henderson Maverick-style shirt, where it's the Maverick logo, but it says Gunnar instead. Those two shirts together normally would be $50. Because they're $25 each, right? Which is a pretty good price for a T-shirt. Still better than what you're going to pay when you try to get a shirt at the ballpark anymore. Right now, those two shirts combined just $20. Not $20 each, which would be a sale. $20 total for those two shirts right now at birdlandsports.com. So I would encourage you to wander over today because you never know at what point that number might move. birdlandsports.com for Birds fans, by Birds fans. Get that 2-pack, the Birds and the Gunner shirt right now for just $20. Take advantage of it again at birdlandsports.com. Is there anything I did watch the basketball last night. Well, I watched the second game. I didn't watch the Sixers game. What the hell happened there? Nobody scored.
Yeah,
I didn't watch any of that game.
That series is like that one. There's always every year that one series that just goes by and you're just like, oh, somebody.
But
got swept.
The only time I looked at it, it was like 83-75, and I was like, it says 3 minutes left. And I was like, okay, in the third quarter.
I think Ernie said it was like there's been 23 games during the entire season where neither team scored 100 points.
I mean,
so
I didn't watch it.
Very down.
I didn't have to worry about it, but damn, it seemed really unappealing.
Though. I mean, for the Nets and the Sixers, they're the most offensively challenged teams in these playoffs, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the Warriors went down 0-2, which is not something we've ever seen
like
before.
They're not going to have Draymond Green next game.
So let me talk about it for a second, right? It's obviously not cool to stomp on somebody. It's clearly not acceptable to just say, well, his leg was grabbed, so and this is Draymond Green. Like, this is part of who he's been throughout the course of his career. I don't know. There is to me, there's something different about a premeditated situation where you're trying to go out of your way to hurt someone versus I'm pissed off because you're grabbing on my leg, and so I'm going to react. Doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it acceptable, anything along those lines. He deserved to pick up a flagrant 2 and get it tossed out of the game. But I do think in how we judge it, we have to judge it differently. Like, I do think in whatever the penalty is going to be, I can't possibly be surprised at this point if he's, to your point, suspended for Game 3. Now, I also don't know if, like, they announced the suspension. When is Game 3? Because this is the weird bit where there's going to be, like, 3 days between games, right? Because
it is 2-2-1-1-1.
Thursday, April 20th is Game 3.
No, it's Thursday.
Yeah.
So it's only 2 nights. So it's some word where they like announce suspension today. He appeals it, gets to play Game 3, and then
misses Game 4.
Because Game 3 feels really big now. Like they absolutely have to win Game 3.
They had gone. So the Warriors had gone 27 straight playoff series,
right, without being down 0-2.
Without being down 0-2. They also became the 5th defending champ to fall behind 2-0 in the first round. Each of the prior 4 went on to lose the series.
Well, I mean, there's not a lot of teams that have come out of down 2-0 in general, right?
3 went on to get swept.
It don't look great.
No, it does not.
I'm not willing to say the series is over. I do think that Sacramento has benefited from sort of a wild home court advantage in the first 2 games, and they've played really, really well. How about Alex Len? This is like it's the Mark Turgeon Kings, by the way. Like, it's the revenge of Mark Turgeon.
Do you think he's
right
there?
now.
Do you think he was at any of those games?
I mean, I don't know why. If he's got good relationships with those guys, I would probably try to go. Like, remind everybody, hey, you guys think I suck, but like, hello,
an NBAers out here.
Hello, look at what I was able to produce. I'm not willing to say that I think the series is over. I don't. I mean, this is still Steph Curry that we're talking about. And while last night, like, he was clearly attacking the rim as much as he could because his shot was not falling last night, and Klay Thompson didn't get going until it was a little bit too late. I'm still not willing to write him off. It is, it's been a bummer is recognizing because, look, they've been drastically outplayed when Steph's been off the floor, and I get it. The Warriors have to keep Steph off the floor, given the injuries he's been through and now his age. That's the bummer of this, is the realization that, like, we really are coming to the end with Steph Curry. Not like the end, but like the end of
he might never qualify for an end of season award again, since these guys got to play 65 games.
Well, I think it's almost certain that that's the case.
I mean, he had 28 last night, and it's not like a LeBron 28 or a KD 28 where you feel the impact. You don't feel the impact.
I disagree with that. Like, he was attacking last night. It was a different type of Steph. Well, I say it's different. Steph always been really good at attacking the rim. Like, it's insane for his size how good he's been at attacking the rim because he's just so slippery. Like, in two steps, you're like, how did that just happen? And you know what it is? It's because he's so active, right? And, like, defenders have to chase him around and chase him around and chase him around. There was a great video from Game 1 of, I don't remember who was defending him, but
Fox, I think.
Was it Fox?
Made a comment on
like,
that at the end of the game.
Chasing and chasing and chasing, and you feel like you've played unbelievably good defense, and suddenly on like the 4th time around, he just steps through, and you're like, what? I did everything I could possibly do, and I still somehow got beat on this play. He was attacking well last night, but it's a different, when Steph's shot isn't going, it doesn't feel like they're lethal. When his shot's going,
and when his shot's going, he injects life into other guys. Like,
correct.
He had a calm 28, but like you look at the box score, Jordan Poole 16 minutes 4 points.
Yeah, that's to me
feels like Steph Curry needs to play well for Jordan Poole to play well.
The bigger story is like Jordan Poole felt like the difference maker post Durant for the Warriors, right? And Jordan Poole was a non-factor, an utter non-factor, and so I don't think they can overcome that. Again, I'm not willing to say the series is over. They go win 2 in San Francisco with their home court advantage. All it takes is winning a Game 5 on the road.
Then again, this is a young Kings team, not
Correct.
a deep Kings team.
They start
either.
to feel a little bit of doubt.
Yeah.
It's not. So last year they split. How did the finals work last year? They split the 2 games in Boston, right? Or how did take me through. Last year they were the first 2 games in San Francisco, and they split those. God, this is gonna drive me nuts.
They were in Boston. No. Started on. Why is it all out of
hang on a second. I'll get it.
Yeah, they started in Golden State.
They started in San Francisco, but they lost game 1, right? And it felt like in that moment, oh crap, like, and they were behind again 2-1, and you were like, all right, this, and all it took for them was to win game 4 on the road, and then all of a sudden the series was completely different, and they turned around and won game 5 on the road as well, and seized it. But it just took them winning until there's the old saying, the series hasn't begun until a team's win on the road. And, like, it's cliche, but you understand why it exists. This is all well and good, but Sacramento, all they've really done is hold home court, and that can go away in a game 5 or a game 7. So I'm not going to overreact to it. It's wild because we just haven't seen it happen before, and it's a statement that those of you that were doubting Sacramento, they are legit. I mean, there really were people that were like ready to just completely write off Sacramento and say, nice story, but you're going to get your ass kicked. I still don't know that they'll win the series, but they have, just doing this alone, backed up that they were no fluke, that there is something real happening there. They were talking a lot on the broadcast last night about Harrison Barnes' future. I get it. Harrison Barnes was really helpful, but could that money be better spent somewhere else? Like, is there another option for them? Are even if something exciting has happened there, are there still really players that are willing to go play in Sacramento? Like, that's unfortunately part of the conversation. I don't know. It's real though.
I think this is a tailor-made shot for them to kind of slay a big team in the West. I look at a lot of other teams in the West where it's like, because like I'm going to say it again, the Kings are not very deep. And so there's a lot of teams that are deep in the West and have the star power. I think they're catching a team in the Warriors. Like, having Harrison Barnes is huge. Like, he knows those guys on the Warriors. And they have for the players that they do have, they match what the Warriors have. Like, Malik Monk, you have a long guard. That's very similar to Andrew Wiggins. De'Aaron Fox, very similar to a quick guard like Steph Curry.
I hear you.
Sabonis, big stretch four, very similar to Draymond Green, probably better than Draymond Green. So, like, they can match where the Warriors are strong at, and I think they could win this series. It just becomes then when they go to the next round where there's like real star power.
What you're trying to say is this all ends with the Lakers somehow winning the West, somehow going from the play-in to winning the West.
I even look at a team like the Clippers or the Suns, whoever comes out of that series.
It's a kind of important game tonight, by the way. A little
really
bit nervous about that.
Putting it on the Kings next round.
All right, we got to wrap up. Let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by the print issue of Press Box, which is still available today, and then it's gone. This is it, last day. If you haven't gotten it, go get it. Tomorrow, the new issue with the Jackson holiday illustration on the cover, and the story about what still exists in the Orioles pipeline, that even though Adley and Gunnar and Grayson Rodriguez are here, that's not the end of it. There's still a lot coming. That Luke Jackson dives into that in the new print issue of Press Box, which hits stands tomorrow. What you got?
Quick tidbit, I guess, because the Orioles, they are the best over team in baseball.
Hey,
they're 11-4-1.
Hey,
over under set at 8.5 tonight, and the Nats are also they're 9-6 to the over this season. So maybe a little something.
Not many low scoring games. So.
Yeah. All right, on Sunday night, Chris Paul had his 578th career double-double across the playoffs and regular season. It was the first of his career that did not include points in the double-double. Because he only had 7 points.
How about that?
Yeah.
How about it?
578, and one of them did
Before
not
AD got injured, he was on track to get a triple-double with blocks, and I was like, man, this dude
that's wild.
Something else.
Jaren Jackson Jr. became the second youngest player to ever win Defensive Player of the Year, behind only who was younger, 2008 and 2009, Dwight Howard, who won the Defensive Player of the Year that year.
We could have been here for a while. I don't remember who won NBA Defensive Player of the Year.
And then Kevin Durant, so he is now on a personal 7-game postseason losing streak that started back in 2021 in the East semis with the Nets.
Okay.
However, he has averaged 30.3 points per game in those 7 losses. There's another player who went on a 7-game losing streak, and that is Michael Jordan. He scored 38 points a game in his personal 7-game losing streak during his playoff career. So just interesting.
Okay. How about
high scorers? And then Tyrese Maxey last night, he joined Allen Iverson as the only other 76er player to ever have multiple 30-point 30-point game and 5 3-point made field goals in the playoff game.
Say that one more time.
30. So
30?
5 threes, 30 points.
Okay.
He became the second player to do this multiple times for the Sixers ever.
Second player to do it multiple times for the Sixers ever.
Yeah, I couldn't think of one because even someone like Andre Iguodala wasn't really a three-point shooter. in his time in
Iverson
Philly.
was not a who. So are you asking me?
Yeah. So my question is, what players have the most? There are 8
well, who was the other one to
players.
do it for Philly?
AI. Allen
It was Iverson?
Yes,
Okay.
Iverson. And there are 8 players who have 10 games as such in the playoffs with 30 points and 5 threes.
Oh,
We
Steph.
talked at
They've done
length,
it-
yeah.
Yes,
Steph.
37, far and away the most of anyone.
Clay.
Yeah.
Clay is 3rd on this list.
Damian Lillard.
13. Damian Lillard on this list with 11.
Kobe.
Kobe did not crack this list. He only had 7 games.
So how many did you have to
30
have?
and 5. You needed to have 10 games played to make the
It's a
top
little
8, to make the
surprised
top
that
8.
Kobe didn't have
Yeah.
10.
A lot of mid-range.
I know, but it's still a little surprising that he
Mhm.
didn't get there. Again, just
James
sheer.
Harden.
James Harden is 2nd on this list. 17 games. So 20 games behind Steph.
Like sheer opportunity, I'll go with LeBron.
That you would be correct. LeBron James has 10 games of 30 and 5 threes.
It's just sheer opportunity. I mean, that's it. All right. So how many were there total? Because we got 5.
Yes, 3 more.
3 more. Ray Allen.
Ray Allen just outside, also 7 games. Only 7 for Ray Allen, just outside the top 8.
That's a little surprising.
Has Luka Doncic even played 10 playoff games?
He has, because he has
but
8 of these. But he is just outside the top 8 here.
That dude's
tied
something else.
for 10th.
Somehow it's Devin Booker.
It is not Devin Booker. Devin Booker has 4 games in the playoffs as such.
All right. Walk us through.
Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry's a good guess. He only has 6 though.
Again, I'll go up. Durant.
Yes, Kevin Durant has 10 as well. 2
Um,
more, 1 active, 1 non-active.
1 active, 1 inactive. Isn't the chance the inactive is Joe Johnson, is it?
It is not Joe Johnson.
All right.
He is a broadcaster.
He's a broadcast. Kenny Smith?
Not
Reggie
Kenny
Miller.
Smith. Reggie Miller.
Oh,
Yes.
Reggie Miller
Reggie
makes
Miller
sense.
also has 10 games of 30
that
and
makes
5
sense.
threes, and then this one plays tonight for the Cavs, suiting up for the Cavs.
Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan
Already?
Mitchell.
Wow.
Yep, 11. He has 11 games. He's tied with Lillard for 30 points and
Doesn't
5
seem like
threes.
he's had enough opportunity
in
in
a
order
playoff
to
game.
do
But
that.
if you think about it, he didn't miss the playoffs for the
I hear
Jazz.
you. I hear you. All right.
There you go.
All right. Very good. Tubular is brought to you today by A.J. Michaels, expert and award-winning. A.J. Michaels Heating, AC Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. All right, Orioles Nationals tonight from down in D.C. Orioles broadcast is on Masson 2. Nationals broadcast is on Masson. At least it's not the combined booth crap that they did all those years ago. Dean Kramer, Josiah Gray, 7 o'clock. MLB Network, Angels, Yankees at 7. ESPN Plus, Maryland, George Washington baseball at 3. And then Georgetown Loyola Lacrosse tonight at 7. I'll have that one for you. Stevenson Lacrosse is at Messiah at 7 on their website. NBA playoffs indeed continue tonight. TNT, Knicks, Cavs game 2 at 7:30. Clippers, Suns game 2 at 10. So I'll get to go right from doing the Loyola game to stress eating, which will be a lot of fun for me. I'll just be dumping bags of trail mix down my throat as I stress watch the Suns tonight. Can't wait for that.
That was a great first game, though. So, I mean, you'll be enjoyed regardless.
No, I won't. I didn't enjoy anything. What is wrong
good
with you?
basketball.
It's sports, Glenn.
Good basketball.
Imagine saying that to somebody. Your team suffered a
You watched
crushing
two of the
defeat,
greatest
and you're like,
duel.
well, gee, gosh golly, but it was just a lot of fun. Get the entire F out of
That
here
Monday
with
night
that.
game with the Ravens and the Browns when Lamar came out of the
Yes,
locker room.
they
that was
won.
They
won the game.
It was still an incredible
Tell
game.
me about the fun that you had watching a game that the Ravens lost. Tell me about it. Name it. Name the game that was super fun for you to watch that the Ravens lost.
Let's see.
Yep, exactly right. Now, NBA TV, Hawks Celtics game 2 at 7. You can't.
When we missed the playoffs last year in week 17, or I guess it was week 18. So that way I knew that we were going to get a higher draft pick. So I was excited. I was chanting Sauce Gardner leaving the
What
stadium.
a psychopath you are.
Yeah.
It's a completely different scenario. ESPN NHL playoffs continue tonight. Lightning Maple Leafs game 1 at 7:30. Kraken Avalanche game 1 at 10. TBS has Rangers Devils game 1 at 7. Then they have Mets Dodgers at 10. ESPN 2 has Jets Golden Knights game 1 at 9:30. Champions League this afternoon on Paramount Plus. Napoli AC Milan at 3. Chelsea Real Madrid at 3. Anything non-sports wise? And do it quickly. We got to go.
On Jeopardy tonight at 7. Towson native for kid from
I
Baltimore.
did see
Daniel Chirocchia is
Okay.
his name, and so he won last night, so he will be playing again once again tonight on
Okay.
Jeopardy. On Fox, Woody Harrelson's gonna be on Colbert. Apparently, he's brothers with Matthew McConaughey.
What?
Yeah, like someone did like a DNA test or something, and I don't know if that's what they're talking about. But
What are you talking about?
Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey are apparently like real life blood brothers, like, and someone felt like they're like half brothers or
Says
something.
he could be his half brother. All right,
I
I don't have time for this. I'm sorry. This is
Anadeo
I mean,
Moslem
it could
Fallon.
be.
Alex Borstein's doing a comedy special on Prime Video. So those are the highlights.
He's
for
apparently saying that it's possible that his mom had sex with Matthew McConaughey's dad. Or hang on, the other way around. You know what? I can't. I'm sorry.
So
I
they're
don't have it
brothers.
in me.
They're brothers, basically.
Something like that. I don't have it in me. God. All right. Thanks today to Jori Epstein. Thanks also to Jarrett Bell, as well as to Patrick Stevens and to Pete Medhurst. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Anything tomorrow?
Stuff and things.
Things are going well here. Things are going well. If you or somebody you know would be interested in joining Glenn Clark Radio, please email Glenn clarkradio@gmail.com. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including A.J. Michaels, Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Hartford Community College, Birdland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Charles at charles.ap28 on Twitter. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass is how you can follow him on Twitter. No, you're on Instagram. You're on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Follow us
I'm
Twitter.
on Instagram too.
Nobody cares. Follow us Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. We got to go. Have a good Tuesday night. Go Birds. Go Loyola Lacrosse. Go Stevenson Lacrosse. Duke sucks.